Welcome back to RPG Archive. We got an amazing show today. We're doing Dragon Quest 4. That's right, we did 1, 2, 3, and 4. I got Teddy here from Majora. Whoop. How you doing, man?
Everybody, I'm swell. I'm always at my best. Dragon Quest.
Of course, your channel, Majora, doing a bunch of concept stuff. You did a swap with TurboZone, another friend of the show, last month. How'd that go for you?
Swell. You know, he's our pal, and he fit right in.
Absolutely,
it's fun.
And of course, we do the button mappers together with TurboZone Alex. That's a weird name, but that's what I gave him now.
Alex of TurboZone.
And you did a table of ranking on his channel for Dragon Quest.
Sure did.
Some hot takes on that video.
You want a hot take? I'm your guy.
Hot take Teddy. It's your new name.
Take Teddy. Yeah.
Make sure you go check that out. That's over on TurboZone. He did a great ranking video. He ranked all the Dragon Quests, so check it out.
Inline ones, anyway.
Yeah. We're doing Dragon Quest 4 today. Great show. Tons of content here, as always. We're digging into the development of the game, the history. But before we do that, we did 1, 2, and 3, also known as the Loto trilogy or the Erdrick trilogy. What's your thoughts on that? How did we do?
For me or the viewers?
That's for you. And the viewers, you could say that too in the comments.
I loved it. I was actually just listening back to some of the Dragon Quest 3 archive just to kind of get a feel for where we've come since then. It's been a few months because I think we charged through like January, February, March with 1, 2, and 3. I just loved playing them back to back, and I'm hoping we can do the same with the Zenithian trilogy.
Dude, we've talked about doing this for forever. 4, 5, and 6, I think, holds a special place in our hearts, especially 4 and 5. So this is really, really exciting, and I think 5, when we get to it, is going to be our big one, because that's the one that's like a top tier Dragon Quest game. It'll be really, really exciting to see if it stacks up.
Yeah, that is arguably the one I am most excited to play and clear. 4 holds a special place in my heart. It is the first mainline game that I finished. So in that regard, I have some nostalgia for it, and I'm wondering my ability to remain objective and endearing.
Mm-hmm. Same. Yeah, it's pretty important to me too. I mean, I got it after 8. I hadn't finished 8, and I got it, and it's like, oh, there's other Dragon Quests out there, and there's like 4, and I got on the DS, like, oh, cool, mobile one, and fell in love with this game, man. This is back in the day. This had to have been like not 15, but more than 10 years ago. So
I got this game when I was living in Hawaii. The only console I had was a Nintendo DS. And I had Mario Kart DS, and I think I started working. It was my last year in college, and I was living not in Waikiki, but kind of close to the college campus. And I went on Craigslist to a couple of games, and we're selling Spirit Tracks, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and this game all for $10 a pop. I took the bus all the way up to, forget the name of the barracks, but it was like a military base on like not the North Shore, but like I think on the west side of the island. And so I spent like 2 hours traveling just to get it, and that was how I first got my copy of Dragon Quest 4.
That's phenomenal. And I mean, those other games are no slouches either. Specifically, Mario and Luigi. I'm not the biggest Zelda
Spirit
fan.
Tracks, not so much.
At that, but Mario and Luigi, I'm down with that. If you ever want to cover that, for sure, we can go back and visit those. Although Turbo Alex might want to jump on that too. You ready to get into Dragon Quest 4?
I'm so ready. I'm ready to quest for some dragons with you, Spencer.
Well, before we go on any quests, I like to talk about the development of the game. So let's break into that. Development started, according to Hori, in October or November of 1987.
Mm.
Oh no, they finished Dragon Quest 3 in October or November of 1987. I apologize. Then they
Yeah, and if you
started.
ever want me to jump in and read some stuff, I can help too.
Okay. Then we started working on Dragon Quest 4 about 2 months after that, so January of 1988.
Mhm.
From the start, we knew we wanted to do a story with 5 chapters and AI battles.
Mm.
We're going to talk extensively about both of those concepts, specifically AI battles, shortly here. I find that interesting that those are the two things that they wanted to focus on.
And even just in terms of timeline, this is still in the NES Famicom days. It still shocks me that Dragon Warrior 4 came out on the NES.
Isn't that weird? Like, you always kind of consider the NES the Erdrick trilogy, and
Mhm.
then the Zenithian trilogy is the Super NES, although for us it's more DS, but that's their fault for never releasing this shit over here. Um, but it is weird that 4 came out at the end of the NES cycle.
Mhm. Technically, the Zenithian trilogy is intergenerational between consoles.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the maps. The maps took extra long to make, and this is from a Shmuplations interview, which I love. If you haven't seen Shmuplations, it's as I've been doing this show, I've come to really, really appreciate this. It's a website that documents Japanese interviews, and they translate them for you, and it's just there's a wealth of information from classic games on there that is so invaluable, especially to this channel. A
Mhm.
lot of great stuff. But according to an interview with them, with Nakamura and Hori, during that time, it turns out the maps in Dragon Quest IV really took a lot of time, didn't they? Hori said, previously I had drawn all the dungeon and town maps myself, but this time I had the new staff members draw them first, after which I would look at them and make corrections and revisions. There's a lot of back and forth there. For a single map, on the low end, there might be 2 or 3 passes between us, but on the high end, it could take 6 or 7 revisions. So yeah, creating the maps was way more time consuming than Dragon Quest 3. Nakamura said,
Isn't that
"Oh yeah,
interesting?
oh my
Because
god,
I mean, we're
yeah,
talking about the same maps as are on the NES as the other Dragon Warrior games. What's so different about the visual appeal or like the scrolling or anything?
there is a lot more going on. I think in these maps. So we mentioned back in Dragon Quest 2 how they had like this weird scenario in a town where he was like, a
Mhm.
demon has stolen my daughter or taken her kidnap, and the demon is like
Right.
10 paces away. You don't see any of that in 3, and you definitely don't see any of that in 4. 4 is way more elaborate. So
It's
I
tight.
yeah, sorry, I could totally tell.
So tight, yeah. No, but it's like everything is intentional versus with 2, it was like they had some concepts that weren't fully explored. 3 is kind of that way as well. Or it's very much like every NPC and their dialogue is super important. I'm just interested in this idea of like redoing the maps.
Yeah, he said more. Nakamura said sometimes it felt like double the work for everyone. And then
Mhm.
Hori said the maps were 90% complete by the end of last year. So that would be 90, or sorry, 80, 88. Actually,
Mm.
though, they were mostly complete by October, including the placement of NPCs. But I took a big chance and decided we would redraw all of them. I didn't think they were up to snuff, so the maps weren't 100% complete until January of this year.
I see.
So they redrew all of them, like, and they've got like, what is it? People like new staff members working on it just to do these maps. That's
Mhm.
insane. I hope they didn't waste too much money doing this. But
They made it back in Japan, so that's
yeah,
that.
that much is certain. Um, but yeah, interesting to see the focus on the maps. Um, Another big focus in this part I found really interesting because we didn't play the NES version. We both played the
Right.
DS version. Um, there's a very heavy focus on AI.
Absolutely.
Nakamura said the AI system also gave us a lot of problems, and it wasn't finished until June of this year. Ultimately, we ended up changing a number of things from our initial concept at the lodge, too. The AI alone took an entire year. There's a lot that I have here. I don't necessarily want to read all of it. Um, but they said, but
Yeah,
Nakamura
yeah, go ahead.
did say, I do have some regrets about the finished AI system. The very first thing I was excited about doing with this system when we came up with it, at least at the lodge, I kind of felt like we didn't execute it perfectly. If only we had a little more time. Nakamura said, I think we didn't quite capture the feeling of being a general and strategically directing the combat. Hori said there wasn't a lot of time for trial and error once we had completed AI, unfortunately. Only when it was finished did we have a good picture of the strengths and weaknesses of the system, but by then it wasn't easy to make radical revisions.
Mhm. So Dragon Quest IV on the NES, Dragon Warrior 4, I should say, is infamous because of its uh, tactics system, which later became the brand for it as an option in the DS version that you and I played,
Right.
and I believe also in the PlayStation, which was a Japan-only title. And all of your party members in the latest chapter, Chapter 5 at that time, would be subject to picking their own moves. You didn't pick for them. So when they
Mm-hmm.
talk about this idea of being a general and commanding your units and that being the goal that they were going for, I've dabbled in the tactics system. On the DS, you do actually have a decent bit of control with the tactics. There's options like show no mercy, fight wisely, use no magic, or follow orders. They also state later in the interview, I don't have it directly in front of me, but I remember reading this, that given the option, if they let the option in to pick commands, pretty much every player would choose that option.
Right.
So they really tried to do something different here. Thus, you have the system of the AI party members, for better or worse. Where do you stand on this idea of party members being AI?
I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not. I abhor it. I I cannot stand not controlling my party members. Um, I believe Persona 3 does this.
I've heard.
Um, it's been so long since I played it, I can't even remember. But I think that's the case. Final Fantasy 12 does this. They have an elaborate system where the party members are controlled just by AI, and you can give them kind of like this. It's got a gambit system. It's a little more in depth. But I really hate not controlling my party members, and I can imagine playing this on the NES being very frustrated and not
Yes.
wanting to do it. What about you?
My feelings on it on the DS are really favorable. I'll tell you why. First off, a little, I guess, hidden gem of a tidbit, I guess, about the NES version is Carol was introduced in Chapter 2 with Tsarevna Elena and Oria as kind of like a bodyguard for her.
Mm-hmm.
One of his signature moves, you know what it is?
I can't remember the name of it. It's the one. It's the insta kill.
Whack.
Whack. There you go.
Whack or whack. It had a different name on the NES.
Right.
On the NES version, he had it. They made it so that no matter where you were in the game and you had him in your party, once he got that skill, that was the only thing he used. So it became kind of a running gag. In Dragon Quest Heroes, they actually gave him thwack as a move.
Oh my god.
When I was playing it on the DS here, I kept him in my party and I kept the tactics system on. He would use thwack. He would kill 3 out of 4 enemies with it.
Serious? It was that high?
Serious. Yes. Even the late game enemies, of course, not like bosses or anything. When it came to a boss, I would switch to follow orders. He would be killing like 2 out of 4 to 3 out of 4 enemies with it, to the point where, and he had so much mana. I love this, as kind of like a symbol of like, just let the party take care of it because they know what they're doing. Because that is the best move in that situation. If I had a character like Ragnar, what can Ragnar do? Attack.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
So why
easy
am I
AI.
wasting a button press? That's an easy move for him. Oreo was a little different. I would have liked if he used oomph a couple times, but I just kept the default setting on show no mercy. So all I had to do was anytime I started the game, I would go to the wagon in the tactics system once, click show no mercy, and the only person I'd worry about getting all their attacks in was my hero,
Hmm.
even if somebody died. Usually had another character to pull from the wagon anyway, but it was rarely happening as it was. So
Yeah.
pretty much most of the game was on cruise control. I actually love this idea and its execution on the DS. On the NES, I could see it being frustrating, but for the purposes of the DS and beyond, I think it's a wonderful option.
Oh yeah. I love the option. That's the key to it. Is I like that there's an option. It doesn't sound like there was an option on the NES version.
No,
Um, and
be
that
like Thwack.
yeah, it's like, oh, okay, thanks for making me use this move on the bosses that I would never
Mm,
want to use. It basically means I'm not going to use that character,
right.
which is super unfortunate.
Mm,
Um, yeah, like you said, Hori said if people had the manual, see, I don't understand that because he's saying if we added a manual control mode, everybody would use it. Okay, so what you're saying is people would prefer a manual mode. It's like, okay, then why don't you give them the ability to use a manual mode? Like they would really like to do that. It just
do you remember when we did Chrono Cross and they were talking about the new battle system for the new hardware? I don't know what it is. Maybe there's like some mentality with developers at the time, especially in Japan, to keep pushing the boundaries. And I
mm,
think that's what they're doing is trying to test the waters and see if they can do something new. It sounds like that's something they wanted to do in Dragon Quest 3 but didn't fully accomplish. To be honest, I like what Dragon Quest 3 does with the character builder.
mhm.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I think we talked about this in the Dragon Quest 3 archive that all of those characters that you build are basically shells.
Yeah, yeah. There's not any variance really between them except for the jobs, which are also interchangeable. So
Yeah. I think in this one, they really want to make the main character feel important.
mhm.
So this concept is framed around that,
Yeah,
really making the hero be the hero, which is something that every chapter ties into.
absolutely. Um, he asks, "Does the AI? I like this. Do you think the AI system will be too confusing for some players?" No, it's easy to understand once you try it. It's very simple. In compared to Dragon Quest 3, it's far easier to control. I feel like it really shortens the amount of time you feel like you're grinding. I really felt how convenient the AI system was once I'd got all the characters and they'd reached the level where they both knew Fireball and Firebane. And then seeing the AI decide which spells to use in the right situation, that was amazing to me. Hori said, yeah, in the latter half of the game, a human player normally wouldn't use a weak spell like Fireball, but the AI knows how to make efficient use of your MP. It actually learns the max HP of the enemies as you fight, too.
Mhm.
So not only did they make AI that could control how to handle a battle system, they made an AI that actually learned based on playing the game and
Mhm.
then adjusted strategies according to new knowledge, which for an NES game is
Yeah.
kind of incredible. As much as I hate the concept of it, of making me do it, I have to laud some of these efforts. Ahead of its
Mhm.
time, do you think?
Definitely, and maybe a sci-fi concept,
Uh-oh.
Does Mina actually have a soul? Should I rescue her from the game? I
um,
feel
kind
like
of
she
Blade
really
Runner.
knows me.
It's a little bit of a replicant issue.
Mm.
But yeah, to elaborate on that, Nakamura, even a human player, when you first encounter new enemies, will sometimes make mistakes. So yes, your allies might do weird stuff at first. But as you fight that enemy again and again, they'll get smarter. Eventually, they shouldn't make any more numbskull moves. I love that word.
Skull.
Or he
They
said,
do though. They
yeah.
definitely do. With the tactics system, I found that don't know. Like I Carol, he's so weak, right? With
Hmm.
his regular attacks. Pretty much, if you're not using Ragnar or Elena, or the hero, or to a lesser extent, Mina. I forget what her NES name is. There's no point in using the physical attack.
True.
There are some exceptions with like staffs. Like Boria can use a staff of healing as an attack. That'll heal some HP. When I have tactics set on and Carol decides to use a physical attack, I really do question why that he's doing what he's doing.
Mm. I think some of them know, like it's saying in here. Maybe it knows that the enemy has like really low HP and could
Mhm.
theoretically kill it with a physical attack.
Here's the thing, right? Is Carol like I would attack something first with Elena because she has high speed, or or with
Mm.
the hero,
Yeah.
and Carol would use whack on that exact same enemy after I did damage to it.
Oh yeah.
I'm just scratching my head. Why wouldn't you pick the one that I chose not to attack? We're a team, right? I'm a general, supposedly.
Well, I think that concept is funny, the general concept, because if you were a general, then you would be telling your team what to do.
Hmm.
It's like the opposite of a general if you're just not and they're doing it on their own.
Yeah.
So I don't
Well, they do
really.
acknowledge a failed
Yeah.
concept, right?
Okay. As long as they agree, because yeah, it
Yeah.
just like logically it doesn't make any sense to me. But
Hmm.
all right, let's skip out of that. Let's talk about some dungeon logic. So aside from the AI, what other parts of Dragon Quest IV are you proud of? This is from the interview. Nakamura
Oh,
said
from the
we had
tree.
a lot of great ideas for the dungeons. There's one that takes place in a tree. Lots of fantastic stuff. He's talking about Yggdrasil on that one.
Is this the birth of Yggdrasil in Dragon Quest?
No, I think Dragon Quest II had Yggdrasil, didn't it? In to get to rescue the Prince of Cannock or the Prince of whatever. Didn't you have to get
Take a look.
a leaf of Yggdrasil? Anyway, yeah, you can look that. Hori said almost all the dungeons have something visually interesting going on. I think every dungeon has some kind of trick or trap going on. Typically, dungeons exist just for one single event at the end. But we really loaded these with unique things. It kind of feels like we went a little too far, even. Are the dungeons small in size? Nakamura said, no, not particularly. There's some huge ones in there too, right? And Hori said, yeah, there are. But I dislike dungeons where it's just a succession of floors and stairways that all look exactly the same. It may be common practice in RPGs, but we were determined not to repeat that. Oh my god,
Okay, the
Hori.
RPGs that they made.
um, I love that he says that right there
Yeah.
because this is something I complain about with a lot of RPGs. Um,
Mm.
I think I railed on SMT3 for this. Nocturne?
Being very rectangular.
Yeah. And honestly, up to Persona 5, like Persona 4 and before, they were also like that. And it's so interesting that back in the NES days, they were like, hey, these dungeons are getting a little boring. It's way back then they were thinking about it, but they never, like, not. There were tons of RPGs all the way up to almost even probably today
Mm.
that don't care about the dungeons.
Yeah. Oh, I did get a follow up on Yggdrasil. It wasn't two, and I think it's mentioned in three, which became the kind of birthplace of it in the Zenithian trilogy.
Mm.
But or for Yggdrasil, or not Yggdrasil, Zenithia. But so it wasn't the previous two games. As far as the dungeon variety, I have to agree there are some really cool segments. I remember one where you're walking up a statue in kind of like the South Island, and then you make like the statue move. I remember going up the tree. I and there's also kind of like I don't know if I'd call it like a classic one that I remember, but even some of like the towers. There's one where like Elena goes up and there's like a fairy thing at the top. They break the mold of the idea of like cavernous dungeon, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah.
I don't see too many of those, which I think Dragon Quest 3 started to break from that trend as well. But and this is something I think on the DS is handled really well with the all range camera.
Hmm.
can kind of like tilt the camera in the way that you're moving. The times where I felt it felt the most 3D were ones where it was like a completely open layer. Like when I'm walking on top of the tree branches in Yggdrasil, I would tilt the camera as I'm going around trying to take a path. So it didn't even feel like kind of like a grid anymore. It really did feel like a 3D, 2D hybrid.
Well, I'm thrilled to use the word grid because that to me has got to be one of the biggest things of breaking away from the NES games and playing the DS version. Could be some of the other versions, I don't know, but specifically we played the DS version. Is it's so nice to step away from a grid-based dungeon where everything is like a a cavern looks like feels like a cavern. The edges are jagged, it's curved, it twists and turns. It's not like a grid. And then a castle is grid based, but it's also not in a grid format. It's still its own free thing, but it's got straight lines. You got the ability to make every area feel different and feel like it's supposed to, as opposed to back then. And I know it's still grid based back when he's doing it, but you can see that he doesn't want it to be. They're
Mm.
very clearly like, this is so boring. We need to not do this. Whereas, and
Mm.
I haven't played them, but SMT is around there, and I guarantee you it's pure grid. And they love it that way. And God bless them for it. But that's just how it was at the time. And I'm so impressed that they were trying to break away from that already.
Mm. Agree. Handled well. And I really think of the remakes too. Once you start like seeing, I guess it was starting to cater towards the PlayStation 1, but like the visual style really does give off a sense of I don't know, like a break from that tradition. It's
Mm-hmm.
like not like a drastic, change in being an RPG. It's almost just like, you played Evo Land recently. It's almost like the evolution of Dragon Quest.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Like, you
such
unlocked, you know,
a camera.
2D, 3D, and a camera.
Yeah, yeah. It's so fascinating to see, and I almost feel sorry for them having to make this game on the NES. It's like it seems like from what I'm reading, and I read some things. I don't know if I even pasted them in here, but they had deliberate talks about putting this on the Super Nintendo instead.
Mm.
And they're like, you know what? It'd be too much. Like we'd have to work on a new art style and do all this stuff. And I'm just like, no, put it on the SNES, please. Like clearly, some
Mm.
of these ideas would be so much better there, but got to make
Just
that the
footnote,
ducats.
my sync like really loud.
No, I think I've heard it slightly here and there. It's
Okay.
makes no difference. You're totally fine.
Okay.
Um, they talk a little bit about the wagon. I mean, there is kind of an interesting concept here they're talking about with experience all essentially, how all members of the party gain experience when you're walking around, and then when you're in a dungeon where you can't have your wagon, they don't gain experience. But they also made a lot of dungeons wagon accessible.
It was weird because my party was leveling up anytime I fought a boss. Whole party, but I could only use 4 of them.
Yeah, this might have just been an NES thing, and they just gave
Changed
experience all,
it
which makes
later.
sense. It's like, why would you
Mm.
make a dungeon or, or a system where sometimes your party can level up, but not
The
always?
the I also grinded for metal slimes in a tower dungeon with only 4 players accessible, and the whole party leveled up.
Hmm.
So it's weird. Like I don't know if they changed that in a later iteration. I don't know.
They must have, because yeah, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, why go through all that trouble to make like an
Mm.
experience all system and then be like, it only works sometimes though?
Yeah.
It's like, what? Why would you do that?
What would you say about the difficulty of dungeons?
We played the DS version, like we said, so it's hard for me to comment on the NES version. But I did
Yeah.
not find these dungeons like difficult at all.
Mm.
But I grind the shit out of everything. So,
Sure.
so I don't know. Did you find anything
Just
difficult?
I didn't even find them that expansive. They weren't like big dungeons. The biggest tower I climbed probably had 5 floors.
True. Yep.
So I just found it underwhelming, I think, in terms of difficulty. But um, you also have the fact that Dragon Quest is very lenient in terms of um die or something, respawn. It's not like you lose all your progress, you just lose half your gold, which
Mhm.
you've probably been spending to level up equipment anyway. But in combination with the fact that I found the dungeons mostly easy, it was weird. There were other things I found difficult, such as like progression things, but not where to go in a dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the dungeons. There's no puzzles in here that are difficult. There's no the only thing that's difficult about the game occasionally is like what the fuck to do, and I think any NES era RPG or even Super Nintendo sometimes has that problem. So I don't know. It wasn't that bad.
Nothing, they've gotten better game to game because the first game I think is just what are you going to do without a guide? The
Yeah.
second game is the same way. Like the one freaking amulet hidden in a random patch of grass in a teleporter area. The hell's going to find that?
Yeah.
3, the worst offender was the merchant quest. 4, what I think it is like unexplained backtracking in order to lock something to talk to in like a tower. You know what I'm referring to? Chapter 2.
Chapter.
Lena, she gets to the town. There's like those robbers who take something.
Oh, and you have to talk to a kid in town that says that there's a some like a note or something, and
Mhm.
then once you talk to that kid, it I can't remember the exact order of progression
Me
there,
neither. It's been a
but
while,
it
but
was something
it's
about talking to the
bizarre.
kid in town, and
Mhm.
it's like so I literally had wouldn't have known what to do unless I talked, and it wasn't even known what to do. It was I couldn't progress the game until I spoken to every character in town because it was some
Mhm.
kid, it was some random kid. It could have been anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
This
exactly the
is
part you're
where
talking about.
I got stuck the first time because I wasn't using walkthrough back in like 2014. I was like, oh, I'll just play. I'll try and enjoy it. And then like I got to the tower. I had gone through the full, expansion. There was nothing in the tower. That fairy wasn't there. The fairy that's supposed to have like some
Like the honey for
elixir or
the voice.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was weird. And then there was something similar to that in like chapter 5 or something. I don't remember exactly though.
We got a lot of chapter talk. We'll save that for shortly here. Um, I do want to comment here. We have Miyamoto's thoughts on Dragon Warrior. This was another Shmuplations interview. This was with
Yamamoto.
Miyamoto. Sorry, this is Miyamoto and Hori in an interview, which I thought would have a wealth of information of Dragon Quest IV. It did not, but it did have an interesting concept here, where Miyamoto was talking about him playing Dragon Quest and what he thought of it. Miyamoto said, or they asked him, "Have you played all four Dragon Quest games?" He said, "I have, but it's hard for me to play for long periods of time. In Dragon Quest IV, I stopped at Chapter 3 with Tornako, but I can say without any exaggeration that I think it's a great game, Dragon Quest IV. What's your opinion of the series? They're simply amazing. In the Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2 era, I think everyone was looking for a way to make a game feel like a real adventure, despite only having numbers and stats to deal with. Then with Dragon Quest 3 and 4, the dialogue really made the characters feel real and alive. And along with all other improvements, it's like enjoying an excellent refined wine."
Hmm.
And he basically revealed he doesn't finish a lot of video games, but did you get the impression he doesn't really like Dragon Quest?
I just don't think he likes turn-based games. And interestingly enough, he says he doesn't even finish Zelda games, which are his games.
Or Mario games?
Miyamoto is basically Usher. These are his confessions.
Oh my god. Yeah. Um
He's not
yeah.
wrong. I mean, they do get better with time. Yeah, or it's a weird analogy because every game gets better as it comes out. It doesn't make the old ones get better over time, like wine.
Yeah. I don't It's that's a
Not his
weird.
finest moment, maybe, as far as interviews go.
I'm stuck on this. In Dragon Quest IV, I stopped at chapter 3 with Tornico. What? He stopped at chapter 3. Bear in
Probably
mind,
didn't like the merchant quest. He didn't want to do the grinding. He's sick of farming for gold to get the equipment or something. I don't know.
Yuji Horii is sitting like 2 feet away from him during this interview or something. Because I don't think
Huh.
they're doing it on Skype. This is 1980 or 1990 or whatever.
Right.
So they had to have been like, you'd think, right next to each other. And he's like, I fucking hate this game.
Awkward laughs.
Yeah. um, I find that interesting too because when they came to Miyamoto, Itoi, to make Earthbound, he's like, I want to make Dragon Quest, but like different.
Mhm.
And he's like, he apparently was like, go for it, I guess. And then they made Earthbound, or at the time, Mother One. So I'm so curious as to what he doesn't really seem to like Dragon Quest, but it does seem like maybe he understands it and is just like, well, it's a game for somebody, and just not for me.
He understands it as a system seller in Japan, and he is not allowed to talk bad about it.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. It's easy to forget about that in America, but yes, and over there it's like, and we've got some numbers, but my God, over there it's huge. So yeah.
Like secretly thinking to myself, "Fuck this game! I fucking hate turn-based RPGs." Want to go stupid ass gold mission.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Last bit of development, and this is brief, but they do talk about a notebook concept. Um, Previously, we talked about adding a notebook command to Dragon Quest for players who couldn't remember everything they'd heard. It would record what people in the various towns said. However, recording one entry took about 5 bytes of space. If you record 50 people's conversations, that's 250 bytes. There was no way we could afford that much memory to be eaten up, so we had to abandon the idea. The cart SRAM needed to be used for many things other than notebook recordings. To make up for the scant 2 kilobytes of RAM on the actual Famicom system, we had to use the cart SRAM for battle AI, map storage, and more.
Mm.
To make it anything bigger, it would have increased the cost of the game by $20 or 2,000 yen at the time. And it already had 2 SRAM chips installed. So already a big game, didn't have enough room to make a notebook system. But again, thinking way ahead, notebook systems are just a normal thing nowadays. Like a quest tracker and like all that kind of stuff. Interesting they're thinking about that then, especially considering like 1 and 2, especially 1 and 2, could have really used something like that to help you understand what the hell to do.
Didn't they? You have a spell like recall, where you could recall the last words that were said to you. I remember playing Dragon Quest III on the Game Boy and it having that. Now, I do understand that from 3 on, 3 and 4, they both had save capability, internal battery. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 still relied on the password system.
Mm-hmm.
So those games might have actually been able to pull it off. Maybe being the progenitor of like this idea of like the notebook system being gone.
Yeah, it's I I I think it would have helped those games a lot, but again, these are the first RPGs. So like
Mm.
it's cool they're thinking about it, but I totally get why they couldn't, and it's crazy to think about that being like a memory limitation. It's
Mhm.
like why couldn't they just have a thing that kept log of everything you're supposed to do? It's
Yeah.
like literally
I'm
sci-fi.
looking now. The Dragon Quest 1 on the NES doesn't have that spell. Check on the for Dragon Quest 2. Couple non-combat ones. Turn, revive, step guard, open, outside, antidote. No, I don't see it for Dragon Quest 2 either. The later
That's
remakes would have those things.
Yeah, they're so valuable, but at the time they couldn't make that. That's so unfortunate and so tragic. They literally couldn't put it into the game. It was too big.
I think those earlier games could have used it more.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They were so cryptic. But could you imagine, like, if Zelda, you're playing Zelda, right? Like Zelda One, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, a villager, by the way, said you could hit that bush with a sword. It's like, oh, that just saved me an hour. Thank you.
You don't even get that in other ones. So.
Yeah. So anyway, would have been nice, but didn't happen.
Don't
Ready to
see
move
Dragon
on
Quest
to?
3 having it either. So yeah, I'm ready to move on.
All right. Let's talk about the release. This game released in Japan on February 11th, 1990.
Ah,
I want to talk about the best-selling games of that year.
okay.
Super Mario World is first. Keep in mind that's the Super Famicom, with
Right.
3.5 million around sales. Next, number two, Dragon Quest IV at 3 million units approximately. We'll get to
Wow.
official sales numbers in a second, but
Okay.
it was the number two selling game in Japan. 3 million units. You are totally right that Shigeru Miyamoto is like, I gotta respect that.
It's like I got to keep my lips sealed on this one.
um, number three is Final Fantasy 3, which is kind of impressive. They'd cranked out three at this point. They're really
Less
catching
than
up.
1,400,000 units sold. Less than half Dragon Quest 4 sold out there.
Isn't that interesting? It's like
Mm,
over here, everyone knows what Final Fantasy is.
right. And this is crazy because the Super Famicom is out.
Yes.
Super Mario World launching with the system, the new Mario title, selling just slightly more than Dragon Quest 4.
It could. I mean, I think the argument's there that if Super Mario World wasn't packaged in with the Super Nintendo, Dragon Quest IV
Mm.
would have crushed it.
Yeah. This is like late life cycle in the Famicom, and it's still pulling those numbers. That argument that like sequels can't pull numbers, it's, lo and behold,
There's only one other Super Famicom game on here, so it's very clear it had just come out. I don't have the release date or anything. I should have looked that up. But Super Famicom, the only other game on here is F-Zero.
There's also Final Fight
Oh, you're right. Final Fight, Capcom.
with under a million though.
I like that this thing says that ranks them by sales,
Mm.
and then is unknown for half of the games on the list. So just take our word for it.
Yeah.
All right, if you say so. I mean, I believe it. Dr. Mario in here and Quicks, Quicks, Kicks.
The puzzle game.
Is that the one that we talked about for? No, that's
Oh.
not it. Okay. Anyway, so really interesting stuff here. Huge success over in Japan. The game released in America in 1992, also on the Famicom. Top. I only have the top three games, so I apologize to our viewers. Top three games that year: Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at 2 million approximately, Street Fighter 2 at 2 million approximately on the Super Nintendo, and Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo at 1 million approximately. People in America clearly have moved on. Like we're onto the Super Nintendo. It's bigger, it's badder. We're onto the Genesis. It's better. And yet they managed. I don't even know how Dragon Quest IV gets released in America. Like I don't even understand how they're like, you know what? 3 didn't do so hot. This console is essentially dead. But let's go for it anyway. And they released Dragon Quest IV over here. It's
Well, I think that I'm looking at these numbers. Of course, there's a 2-year gap here, so this is not going to be a one-to-one thing, right?
mhm.
It'd be interesting to look at the 1990 US sales as far as best games. But even just if we're doing this comparison, top 3 games in America sold 5 million total. Top 3 games in Japan sold close to 10 million.
Yep.
There's a video gamer otaku market Japan at this time that is not present in the States.
That's a good
So I
point.
feel like a lot of it is still experimental, figuring out what the American audiences want, what they like. No, it's almost an unfair comparison because in '92 the Genesis had been out for since '89 technically, and the Super Nintendo I think was '91 or '90.
Something like that.
So I even in like the quality of those games, like I would be interested to see for like the Final Fantasies. The other thing is the Dragon Quest games were already working on a 3 year gap
Yeah.
between when they came out in Japan and when they were localized for overseas audiences. So I think Dragon Quest 3 come out for the NES in like '91 as well. I think Dragon Warrior 1 came out in '89. It was a release in like '86 on the NES on the Famicom.
Right. So it's just weird to see them fail this game so bad. Like in America. Clearly in Japan, it's the exact opposite story. But in America, it's so unfortunate and just tragic to see them be like, let's screw this up in America. Um, yeah, Dragon Quest One, it did all right. We gave the game away, but we gave away a lot of copies. Like maybe people will take to Dragon Quest Two. Oh, not really, not really. It's a little late. Okay, what about three? Oh, even worse. And then it's like,
Yeah.
let's do four. And somebody had to have been like, sir, um, the Super Nintendo's been out for over a year, maybe 2 years at this point. People are playing Sonic the Hedgehog, Street Fighter, and The Legend of Zelda. And they're like, well, we'll give Dragon Quest 4 from the last gen a try. But I guess at some point they had to have realized it's not working, and that's why they stopped. And I guess Dragon Quest 4 is it. It's because we do have the sales numbers here. In oh, we do. Hold on. Before we get to that, well, let's talk about this. And then
Yes,
we'll go back.
skip down. Go to the NES sales, and then we'll
Yeah,
come back to the other one.
yeah. In Japan, it's 3.03 million, which we saw in the other thing.
Its total lifespan
Yes.
since then, yeah.
In North America, it's 0.08 million. That's 80,000 copies.
Are currently floating the globe.
Yeah.
North American copies.
If you can find one, send them to the show. We want a copy of Dragon Quest 4 on the NES.
Oh yeah. Europe got none.
Boom.
The rest of the world got 0.01.
The
10,000.
The rest of the world got 10,000 copies of this game. Who knows where these copies are? Like, I would be so interested to see if there's a copy anywhere, America or other. I want one. This is insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm trying to think, like, just even just being humble about like U.S. population. Let's just say 300 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then 30,000 would be like it. I'm going to come back to the 80,000. I'll just use my calculator because I can't think through the math right now. 30,000 divided by 300 million. 0.0001. So then you move the decimal 2 to the left. That's 0.00001% of people in the States owned a copy of this game.
And keep in mind, too, it's also worth noting that Japan's population is so much smaller than America's. And they had so many more people buy the game. like almost 100 times more. It's, or maybe, I don't know, but it's a lot more. Two different worlds. And it's also worth noting there's another story to be told here because we have the Dragon Quest 3 sales numbers right below it. Dragon Quest 3 in Japan sold on the NES 3.77 million.
Wow.
Dragon Quest IV sold 3.03 million. So in Japan, they'd moved on. How do they think it's going to do in America when they try the same trick? It went from, in Dragon Quest 3, 0.1 million units, 100,000. And then it went to 0.08 million. So it's actually probably similar in reduction, because everybody had moved on. They wanted, it's clear to me, because Dragon Quest 4 is better than 3, I think. I don't think there's like a question about that. So 4 had less sales, and it has to, the only thing I can see is that they moved on to Super Nintendo. If there's anything else, I mean, I'd love to hear it, but to me, it just seems like they should have made this game for the Super Nintendo.
That would have been a very logical next step. It's just a consistent failure of marketing because Dragon Ball was so popular.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it on like Cartoon Network and stuff. Not at this time, not in '92, but like the anime had been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The art style was there. They still had this kind of like ugly NES box art.
That's a good point. Is they were still marketing it like some weird D&D looking box art.
That's once you play the game, it's just not what it is. So much more, and that's really just a damn shame at the end of the day. It is impressive, I guess, that as many people bought it as did, all things considered.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Guess, but not, yeah. I'd have to have seen like magazines, you know? Which, I mean, I'm into the magazines, but you know, this wasn't my time.
Mm-hmm. Me neither. We did get a release for this on the PlayStation 1, or on the PS1.
We didn't.
Yeah, you're right.
A Japanese release did come out on the
Yeah.
PlayStation 1.
And Enix had shipped a total of 1 million units of Dragon Quest IV for the PlayStation across Japan. Over 750,000 copies were sold within the first 2 weeks of the game's release. There's a canceled localization.
If you own Dragon Warrior 7 on the PS1, and I know you do, you should take a look at the back of the manual, or it's like one of the pamphlets in there, because there's an advertisement for the upcoming US release of Dragon Quest IV on the PlayStation 1.
No way, is there?
So this,
oh my god,
according to Dragon Quest Shrine, states that the company that was behind the project that had already started the work on it dissolved because they didn't have enough money.
No.
And it was 2001. I'll read this for you, and then we can discuss it. Shortly after completing localization work on Dragon Warrior 7, Heartbeat dissolved, citing they were taking a break from the video game industry. Problem is, they neglected to inform Enix America until it was too late. Heartbeat was the only one that could input the translated text into the game due to their complex code. In 2001, the PlayStation was a dying system. Since the PlayStation 2 was released in 2000, the platform shift was well underway. Every day that passed was another day the PlayStation received less shelf space and dropping prices. Releasing a PlayStation game in 2002 with an MSRP of $40 wasn't feasible. If Enix had hired a new programming team, they would have had to learn Heartbeat's code along with translating a very text-heavy game. The localization costs and the clock ticking away, it would have been financial suicide. So we're left with a scrapped concept for basically what we have now as the DS version on the PlayStation 1. They're very similar.
That breaks my heart.
That's crazy too, because I mean, we haven't talked about the Dragon Warrior 7 sales, but that's really when the series started picking up steam here.
That's true. Ugh.
You could be thankful for that at the least, but and could you imagine?
We could have had this in 2002, it looks like. Maybe 2001 if they hadn't dissolved. God,
Mm.
I would have translated this game for free if I knew how to do it. I would have been all over that. I would have been like, "Oh, our company dissolved. That's a shame. I'll do it at night because I love this shit so much." Oh, that's so tragic. That's weird.
Tragedy,
It
man.
came out theoretically, or was planning to come out after Dragon Warrior 7.
Mm.
It's kind of unique. I don't know why. Dragon Warrior 7
Miss.
was huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I mean that company had put a lot of work into that one, that's for sure. Missed opportunity. But I'm glad that it did eventually come back in the form of the DS.
Yes. Critical reception. Dragon Quest IV was awarded Best Game Grand Prize. That's got to be a Japanese translation. And Best RPG Game in Famitsu. There it is. Famitsu Magazine's 1990 Best Hit Game Awards. It was also awarded Best Challenge. In second place, Best Overall Game for the NES in 1993 by Nintendo Power.
It's
1993?
game of the week.
I mean, best overall game makes sense when you say, by the way, we're talking about for the NES in
Mm,
1993. That's
mm.
oh my god.
Second place.
1997 EGM ranked Dragon Warrior 4 as the 58th best console video game of all time.
Wow.
Easily the best RPG ever released for the NES in the US or Japan.
58th, no small feat.
Dragon Quest IV Chapters of the Chosen was a nominee for Best RPG on the Nintendo DS in IGN's 2008 Video Game Awards. Best RPG on the Nintendo DS. That's what some more of those like really like narrow categories. I guess DS had a lot of RPGs, so maybe that is good. But still,
Mm.
2008 Best RPG on the DS. Ugh. I don't think this game gets the credit it deserves. And I think part of it is that whole like releasing it so late on the NES. But like Dragon Quest 3 gets like a lot of accolades for being phenomenal and being revolutionary. And it deserves some of it. Not all of it, but it deserves some of it. But 4 is better than 3.
Oh, when we looked at the reputation of Dragon Quest 3, it was like on that list for like 15 years.
Yeah. I bet you on that same EGM or IGN list or whatever. No.
It's like number top 10.
Yeah, EGM, it's like this is 58. I think this was on that same list as number 3.
Right. Put Dragon Warrior 3 over Dragon Warrior 4? That's insane to me.
Yeah. Doesn't
What
make any
is it? What do you
sense.
think it is?
Well, for one,
What are people seeing it?
I think a lot more people were playing the NES when 3 came out than when 4 came out.
Okay.
That's got to be one. And I do think that 3 revolutionized a lot more than 4 did. But 4 is better. Like, I think inarguably 4 is better. Like a better game.
If you look at what they wanted to do, what Hori wanted to do, this idea of telling, a grand story,
Mm-hmm.
4 achieves it. And I mean, even without the sixth chapter, I don't know what the full story is behind that, but I still think it's a very well told tale. Dragon Quest 3 is good foundationally. I don't think fully meets a lot of those concepts. And I guess what it comes down to is I think just more people played it and it just had more brand name recognition, I guess. 'Cause it
You
got the
know,
Game Boy Color remake.
I'm thinking more people played it, but also on the NES, 0.10 million.
100,000. Yeah,
But
but the
maybe you're
Game
onto
Boy
something with the Game
Color.
Boy Color. That might
Right.
be where it kicked off. I don't have those
Mm.
numbers on me right now. Maybe that's where it kicked off because that's a better version too.
Yeah.
That could be it. And there was no Dragon Quest IV on the Game Boy Color.
Imagine if there was.
It'd be number two. if if Dragon Quest 3 was third on the list, this is number two or number one. I don't know at the time. I think 1997. I'm thinking Chrono Trigger's come out, so I'm thinking different numbers there, but but still, it's better than three. Hmm.
Yeah.
The scores aren't bad. It's got like eight, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 4 out of 9 out of 10. Metacritic,
Famitsu 34 out of 40. That's for
Metacritic,
DS though.
yeah, it
If we're
wasn't.
looking just at the NES, right? What are we working with? We're working with Famitsu. Oh no,
37 out of 40 is a damn good
Video.
score.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And from Famitsu. What was the one we were looking at that got a 34?
I don't remember. Chrono Cross got like a
Yeah.
40 out of 40, I think, or something. Like a,
Yeah.
which is okay.
Yeah.
I
In
disagree.
hindsight, it doesn't deserve it.
Um,
Love Chrono
all,
Cross, but
all
yeah.
game, all game gave it a 3 out of 5 stars.
I have no idea what they're doing. The
I don't know what
three?
all game is, and I don't know how they survived from the NES to the DS era.
Probably
Especially
were googly eyed for SNES.
electronic games. I wonder if that's EGM or something. I don't know. No, that's Gaming Monthly. They gave it 85%. It did all right. It did pretty good reception wise, except for that weird all game one.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. That's
What'd you
weird.
give it? On what scale?
I think an 80 out of 100 is super fair.
Yeah.
I at the time I would argue probably a 90 out of 100, but looking at it from my
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, at the time, NES. Hey, what are the comparable RPGs? I guess in 92, 93 is it? 92? I guess Super Mario RPG.
I
I
will
don't know if that's
say
out.
Final Fantasy 2 US. I wonder when that came out. We'll do 4. I put 2, but I think on the internet it's 4 now. It's just agreed. Um,
Mario RPG is 96.
damn. That's way later. um, North
What
American
RPG?
localization. Final Fantasy. I can't see a release date.
It's one RPG on the NES that is better than Dragon Warrior 4.
I can't fathom there's one. Although
Oh.
Dragon or Final Fantasy 3 is held in high regard. 2, no, but 3 is held in pretty high regard. I don't think as high regard as Dragon Quest 4, but I mean, it's something.
Yeah. I mean, just all things considered, like every Dragon Quest game that was coming out was better than the one before it,
Hmm.
arguably.
Yeah.
Even I'm looking up RPGs on the SNES. There's virtually okay. Final Fantasy 4 is 91, I guess.
I don't know
5
if
is
that's if
92.
I feel like it must have been released later on the
Yeah, this
US,
might
but
be wrong.
it's hard to say. But in 91 that could have been the Japanese release. That makes sense. I don't know. That game was huge. That game was a big deal. And it's on the Super
Hmm.
Nintendo, so it would be a lot more accessible and better in a lot of ways.
North America 91.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. In
Got a Super
91
Nintendo game.
they had Final Fantasy 4 and then they released on the NES Dragon Quest 4 the next year.
Wow.
That's embarrassing, actually.
A little bit. But I still would have been pleased to own it. But if I was a kid in school, I'd probably want Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah. Oh, no doubt. Well, and 3 really real 6 is going to come out in a couple years after that. So,
Mm.
whew. You ready to move on to the game?
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the game. We did a Reddit poll.
Up Reddit.
Everybody at Reddit, we are acknowledging you. You are part of the community. Make sure that when we do these, you join us and you put your comments in. And ideally, you go to the original source. Just because I share it
RPG
doesn't mean it's
Archive.
yeah. We're gonna make sure to go to RPG Archive. We did a poll and we asked who your favorite party member is. And I took away the hero and I took away Tornico, not because I wanted to. I'm not the criminal here. I'm not the bad guy. Reddit only allowed for this many selections. So I worked with what I had. I said, you can't pick Tornico. We all love him. He's got his own spin-off games. All right. And then you can't pick the hero because I couldn't, I did my best. But we had a choice between Maya, Ragnar, Elena, Boria, Kirill, and Mina. Remember, these are the American localized names. They all have, look them up. We'll go over those in a second. Number one, by a pretty wide margin, is Elena. She got 39 votes.
Woo.
The next highest was Maya at 12.
Wow.
Then Ragnar, then Kirill, probably because of that stuff you were talking about, the whacking. He's whacking off too much. And then Mina.
Moles.
And then poor Boria. Old man Boria gets 1 vote.
Everybody's favorite. But everybody uses him.
He's got oomph.
Got a lot of oomph.
Some comments. Outrageous Sector 64 says Ragnar's the best because he gets that slime NPC. I like the slime side story. Remember wishing you could use him once you find him later.
Yeah, I respect that. Gotta love Healy.
The new Archon says, oof, this is a tough one. Lots of good characters. I love Maya and Mina because Dancer, Fortune Teller are such cool classes aesthetically. But I also have a soft spot for Kirill because male healers are just so rare in JRPGs. Ain't that the truth?
Ain't that the truth?
And Elena is super cool for being one of the few early physical attacker female characters in a JRPG. I think I picked Mina because Fortune Teller is such a cool class concept.
Ah, okay.
Marky the Snow Witch says, I love Elena as a character, even though there is really nothing to her gameplay. And
much.
King 9999 says, I like Elena because her crit rate is ridiculous. There's a lot more comments, but that was over on the other archive. I don't want to sift through all that. But thank you so much for participating in this survey. We'll have many, many more as time progresses. So make sure you hop on there. Make sure you check us out on RPG Archive on Reddit.
General impressions, do you agree?
No, I think Maya's the best because she's the hottest. That's my opinion. What about you?
Ragnar's a beast, bro. I mean, you know what though? I don't know what it is. I just it's my nostalgia speaking. That's why I pick Ragnar. I think I voted for Ragnar in this poll. Realistically, the first time I played, I used Elena. She does have a mean crit rate, and also when you attach her with the twin falcon or something, I forget exactly what it's called.
The earrings.
It's like it's an attack thing, or it's an attack weapon. It gives her 2 attacks, and then if you increase her luck, one of those attacks is it's gonna be good. So I always liked getting that extra attack in. Or Boria. I mean, realistically, I get it. Why would you like him? Maya, I understand Maya. The late game, he gets Puff. And I don't know if you know about Puff. I think we've talked about it before. You know what it does when you hit her up with some of the Puff?
No. What does that spell do? Oh, is that the dragon one?
It's the dragon one.
Okay, then yes. I have a really funny story about that, by the way.
I'd love to hear it.
It ties to the end, but yeah, I'll just tell it now. I beat the main villain of the normal game on my first go round.
Nice.
But all of my party members were dead, and I was using the wagon. And then Maya was the only one left, and I forgot because I hadn't been using them. They were all set to auto battle. All of them were using tactics. So I was not in control of what was going on. And she used Puff. and she killed him with a fire breath. She beat the final boss with a fire breath that I was not controlling at all. So it was. I have a really cool memory with that, and it's just very very crazy. Yeah,
It's a point for AI party members.
yeah. The game actually did what beat the game for me, so I guess there's something to it.
You know where else Puff is really useful?
Where?
Fighting metal slimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does
I think
it counts as a hit?
normal attacks do like 1 damage when you attack a metal slime.
Yeah.
Puff does normal damage.
No, so it's like an instant crit? An AoE
It's not a
crit?
crit. It's like it'll do like 80 something damage, and these metal slimes don't have more than 5 HP.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's crazy.
You got a line. And first off, Puff attack. It's a attack all. I forget. I don't think it's an AOE. Whatever you call that.
Is it a
Attacks
group
every enemy on the screen.
or every enemy?
It's not. It's not group. It's
Oh, it's
every enemy.
It's like a boom.
Mm-hmm.
Holy!
So if you're using Tornico and you're you doing blowing a whistle, getting a line of like 5 slimes, you use Puff. She breathes fire that same turn. Low XP.
Oh my god! There you go. That's how you farm in this game. That's the way. I was gonna say it'd be nice to have Elena on your party. Fuck that. Just put just put her in there. Holy crap!
I is a beast. So she took second. That's a pretty good spot for her. I didn't pick her, but I mean I respect that. Mina's okay.
What makes Maya and Mina even better is playing Dragon Quest Heroes 2 specifically. They're so funny and like they're witty and they're like all obsessed with boys and making money and stuff. They're very funny characters, and some of the dialogue in the DS game too are really for all of them it's great. Elena too, she's very funny, but I think they're fun to read their comments about what they think about the situation because it's usually about boys or money.
Here's the real question. If Tornico was in this poll, would he have won?
Undoubtedly. Well, maybe Elena. I don't know because Elena surprised me with how much she pulled ahead.
Yeah.
But
I think she has popularity because of Dragon Quest Heroes. I don't know.
Maybe, but Tornico's got his own damn games. Games.
He gave birth to a series.
Yeah. That's gotta count for something, damn it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to touch on these heroes just a little, or these characters just a little bit. We have the hero. You can choose a boy or a girl. I don't know if this was in the original. Okay.
It was.
She also appears in the introductory prologue. Okay, so the prologue was also in the original. Okay. More character than other heroes?
Can I say about that though?
Yeah.
Even though you can pick the gender of the hero in the NES game, I refer to the hero as a guy.
It will always do that?
Yeah.
There's one interaction that's on the DS game that is shocking. And it is if you're a girl.
Wow. I've never played as a girl in DS one. So.
Actually, I took a picture of this, so maybe I'll send it to you after. Okay. And it was forever ago, so I have to dig it up. But if you're playing as a girl and you go to Bath, the town Bath,
right?
Not the town Bath, the town that's called Bath.
Yeah, the town Bath. I get it. Not the town Bath. I get it.
But if you go to the town Bath of the town of Bath, there's a person there. There's an old lady or an old dude, and they'll say you're very flat chested. It's super random. It's like, oh my god, are you kidding? But it's it's such like a weird thing that they threw in there. It's just that weird humor that you don't see very often. But yeah, you're very flat chested. But yeah, you're the hero, and you were born from an angel and a human woodcutter, and you are actually the hero that's meant to save the world.
Chosen one. Oh, you know what? I screwed up. It's not Dragon Quest 4 that you're referred to as a he. It's Dragon Quest 3.
Oh, okay. It wouldn't have surprised me because I read something about 4 where he forgot that you could pick genders, like until like halfway through, and said it's too late, so I'm just gonna keep going. So it wouldn't have surprised me if that was the case. Uh, so you have a little more character than before, and you even have a really cool scene at the beginning of the fifth chapter, I think, where
Yeah.
your friend can mimic you and then like dies in the next room. Like it's like so horrifying, and but it's there's been nothing like that until then.
She's your doppelganger.
Yeah, really cool scene, really tragic,
Mm.
like really sad.
Oh, this is the birth of tragedy. I
Hmm.
think this is so good. This is like Shakespearean in a sense. And you know what? I mean, it almost is Shakespeare in a sense because you know how many acts are in a Shakespeare play?
Three, five.
Five.
Okay.
There are five acts in every Shakespeare play with different amounts of scenes, give or take. Two, five, maybe one. Um, there are five chapters in Dragon Quest IV.
Hmm.
Every chapter helps to tell a tale of the hero and the prophesied hero, which is kind of a trope in RPGs as we know it. I still think it works well. Every character is refined, has their own kind of unique subplot, even starting with Ragnar. You know, I don't know if we want to go into their individual plot lines yet, but um, everything's purposeful, and though not clear at the beginning, maybe not like exactly what the deal is, who's the nemesis, what are you fighting for or against, you do sense some purpose and importance behind every character's actions.
Yeah. It's gonna be kind of awkward to talk about the characters without talking about the chapters.
Hmm?
So maybe it's just we talk about the characters in their general chapters, and then we can talk about the chapters in larger form after.
Sure.
Okay. Because the next one is Ragnar, like you said, and he has the first chapter. He's the captain of the Berlin army, and he investigates a case of children who are disappearing throughout the kingdom. Um, he's he's your warrior. He has no moves, and I read something interesting where they were talking about, and this might be further down in some of my notes, but oh yeah, when they were talking about the chapters, they mentioned that the first chapter is actually supposed to emulate Dragon Quest One, and the second
Mm,
chapter is supposed to emulate Dragon Quest Two, which actually makes
wow.
sense because we'll get to chapter two in a second, but it makes sense for this to be Dragon Quest One because you have a character that is by himself trying to solve this problem in a rather small story.
Mm.
Granted, he doesn't have heroic moves; he just has attacks. But you do get your friend the slime to help you for a little bit, so you have a heal, kind of. But in general, yeah, it's supposed to emulate Dragon Quest One, which is kind of interesting.
I like Ragnar.
Yeah, I like him too.
I think, you know, in the late game, he becomes the only character who can use pretty much the same weapons and armor, with the exclusion of the Zenithian weapons and armor, as the hero. I had him with a dragon shield, had him with a miracle sword. You know, the dragon shield and dragon armor reduce fire and ice damage, which is super useful against bosses.
Hmm.
His attack was huge. He was really doing a number on enemies. He was a little slow, but that's okay. I could count on him to be the anchor. Miracle Sword would replenish HP. He had 300 HP at level 32. You
Yeah.
know, he was right up there with my hero. So he was a tank, and I didn't have to worry about him, you know, dying on me. That's really valuable in party members, especially we were talking about Dragon Quest 2. Dragon Quest 2, your party members suck.
Yeah.
You can count on them to die. Ragnar is like a true bred warrior, and he serves his purpose well.
Yeah. He's kind of. You get the impression that he's kind of goofy, but I don't ever recall talking to him. Like in the.
Once,
You did once?
chapter 3, he's in the casino, or he's in that town. I think Endor.
But you know how like you can in the DS you can talk to your party sometimes and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
You can't do that though. There is no party chat.
Yeah, there is in the DS version.
I thought that was added in 5. I don't remember it in 4.
I swear, because I remember talking to Maya and Mina
Really? You know
and
what though?
Elena.
You know why you talk to them is because you recruited them as a hero later.
No, I swear I spoke to them.
You
Like
spoke to them
like
in the casino when they joined your party. Know that.
um
So you mentioned the notebook thing, but because remember, they said about the notebook, it would have been a great feature to add so that you could tell where to go if you were ever confused. Didn't have that in 4.
yeah, four was the first remake to receive party chat and is slightly different from subsequent versions. Namely, the hero does not need to be alive or present in the party for a conversation to begin. This can occasionally lead to small goofs when a character references them, but does allow for the feature to be used in dungeons when the wagon is not allowed and the protagonist was left outside.
Okay, maybe I just missed it then.
I mean, it's easy to miss because it's like, when would you ever use it? But
Right.
I specifically remember talking to Maya and Mina and Elena because Elena
Well,
has that crazy
when I
thing.
played 5, I used it all the time, just like 'cause I loved the little tips and tidbits. But I don't think it was well implemented here to the point where I could really.
Yeah, I don't remember even speaking to Ragnar, and he was in my party in
Right.
chapter for throughout chapter 5 as soon as I could get him in there.
Mm,
So it's weird that I don't remember like ever speaking to him, but I
mm,
did like him. I just never spoke to the guy. So I guess he was just my strong warrior, strong and
mm.
silent warrior.
I just remember talking to him on the overworld. He's like, "I
Mm.
love it here." Indoor.
And
He's
then
also the thing is in his quest. I guess we'll come back to the quest. I'll talk about that later.
okay, next characters we have are Elena, and you can't talk about her without talking about Bray slash Boria, and then Christo, Crifto, or Kirill.
Oh,
Elena
sounds
is
like a
our
magic spell.
yeah. Elena
Sto crypto Carol.
is our like fighter. Not I don't know fighter or were they named something else in Dragon Quest
Fighter
Three?
would be a good name.
Fighter. Okay,
Dragon Quest 3, they had fighters, yeah.
fighter, and then Boria is your wizard, and then Kirill is the priest. Um, Elena got our number one spot on the Reddit. So there you
Fan
go.
favorite right there.
She's tough and she's brash and she's mean and headstrong. Boria is the old wise wizard. He's a tutor, and Kirill is a. I think it's like implied that he kind of has a thing for Elena, but
Mm.
he's a priest and he's like he
Yeah.
probably can't really act on what he wants there. But um, and then their chapter was chapter 2, and which was meant to mimic Dragon Quest 2 or Dragon Warrior 2, and it makes sense because
Yeah.
Elena has no spells and is your attacker, and then you have a priest, and then you have a mage. They
Just a mix up of the genders, I
Yeah, they
guess.
twisted the genders on it,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny. But yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a cool, and you know what? I mean, it's kind of a nice twist on like the RPG tropes in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And it's one thing I really like about Dragon Quest IV is even though there's like the main hero, every character gets equal airtime. In reality, it's like you have 8 protagonists or 7, 6. I don't know. Hero, Elena, Carol, Boria, Ragnar, Mina, Maya, Tornico. 8.
I sort of think you could argue that Boria and Kirill not as much, and that Elena is the protagonist of
Yeah,
their
that makes sense.
crew.
Yeah.
But you're right. Every other one, they're all the protagonists. Maya and
She's
Mina.
cool.
Yeah.
She's a tomboy, you know? She goes against her dad's wishes.
She breaks stuff.
Yeah.
um. Okay. We've got the real favorite. Tornico.
The
He's in
classic.
chapter 3. He starts out as a merchant. And not even really a merchant, as the cashier for a merchant.
Mhm.
Some guy who's building swords and stuff. And he just stands at the counter and sells stuff. And you can do that as long as you're willing to put up with it, which is genius from a
Yeah.
gameplay perspective.
You don't actually have to do it at all. You could just go outside the town and start battling.
Yeah.
Be hard. You should at least save enough to get a club.
Yeah.
He's a textbook Chad right here. This guy's a working class dad, probably coolest dad in gaming. He's working to support his family, his like wife, his kids. Later in the chapter, they've got a business going. He can set up shop. If you go on the overworld, he'll sometimes run into merchants and can buy stuff and sell stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Really a different concept.
And one of my favorite quests in chapter 3 is that fox quest. There's like a little town and there's like they're foxes but they're in disguise as humans. And the town just disappears randomly. And you're just kind of left to like why do people keep coming here? And there's a guy you need to fix a bridge at the town, but he's just stuck there in love with one of the foxes.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I gotta just go get a dog to scare off all these foxes. And then you bring the dog in and he scares them away, and then the town just disappears forever. And they're like, okay, sorry we did that. We're just gonna leave. And like, okay. It's such like a it's such a fairy tale quest. And I just adore that in Dragon Quest. That they tackle things in like a fairy tale style. And it's so refreshing. I adore that quest. I think it's such a perfect quest. Perfect for Tornico, too.
I agree. Yeah, that one's a cool one. I think Tornico he's kind of like a humble character, he can't do anything crazy. His moves are funny.
Mm.
When you have him in the party later, if you decide to put him in the party,
Don't know why.
he'll be a goof. He'll like trip and then fall and land on the enemy and do a bunch of damage. Doze off. He'll tell a funny joke and get the enemy to waste their turn laughing. He's just a class act. I love when I run out of party members and Tornico's like one of the few I have left.
Yeah.
He just does some nonsense. Like, this is great. Also funny, when you leave town, like the first town that you're in with the wife, she always packs you a lunch every time you start the new day.
That's
You didn't eat
true.
your packed lunch? I'll pack you a new one.
That's true.
So it's kind of just like a touch of home. There's just something really charming about that.
Why do you think he took off so well? Like they made spin-off games we're going to get to later to discuss, but what is it about Tornico that's so intriguing?
Provider, model citizen, human. I don't know. Let's play these things, right?
Maybe there's something in Japan where it makes more sense. I mean, I don't hate the guy. I love him. But it's just, I have no explanation for why they're like, we need to make a game, a spin off game, and it's got to star that guy. The merchant from chapter 3. Maybe because they never done like a game where you're the guy selling weapons. And they're like, there's got to be something more to that. And we know that he does it, so let's just make the game after him. It's so
No,
fascinating.
to me, it's like the Earthbound complex. Like this strive to create something that's real, reality.
Hmm.
He's not a fantastic being. He's the antithesis of your hero. Hero is a stereotype of RPGs.
That's so
Fated
true.
one who will save us all. Tornico's a breath of fresh air. Who the hell is this guy? You just came off 2 chapters. You had a brave warrior. You had the tomboy escapee princess. Now you're cool ass dad merchant Tornico.
That's sick.
Yeah, he is. He's sick. Love Tornico. Nothing but respect.
Chapter 4, we get Maya and Mina, or their Japanese, or their original names, Mara, Manya, and then Nara and Minea. Maya is the dancer, mage. Mina is the fortune teller, healer. They're cool. They're to me they're very sexy. Um, specifically Maya. Mina Mina's weird because she's a fortune teller, and technically you can get cards.
Yeah,
And
silver tarot cards.
I think they did something, but I never used them. Like I think you have to have them
If
equipped.
you sell them, you can't get them back. I know that.
Okay.
I don't know what the purpose is though. That'd be worth looking up. Spell wise, I just didn't see them as being as viable as I would have liked them to be. Because I really did rely on buff from Carol and oomph from Boria heavily. I didn't think I was going to need that this playthrough, but I really did. Um, so
Yeah.
they're a little weaker. I
Mm-hmm.
always found them dying. I would have loved to do the all girls playthrough. Elena, Mina, Maya. It fell short. The tactics didn't work well with that as a combo.
I did all right with that. I did that first a while ago, and then when we did it, I did all dudes except for the hero. Yeah, the all dudes I think was a little more reliable because you had spells like oomph, and I know Kirill had some that were more useful than Mina as well. They were just more useful. The fighter, Elena versus Ragnar, you could probably switch them out. I don't know because Elena has the crits. Ragnar's probably got a little better defense and maybe attack, but yeah. Mina and Maya are lesser thans, I think. If you're looking at actual stats and moves, I found out what those cards do. By the way,
What's that?
if you use them during battle as an item, she draws a card. It can be one of these options: Justice, which casts poof on all enemies and sends them flying into the blue.
Wow.
Devil, which casts Sap on all foes. Death, which casts whack on one enemy. Sun restores a moderate to large amount of health to all allies. Moon casts Dazzle on all enemies. Strength casts Oomph on a random ally. Kinda sucks. Star doubles the amount of experience and gold received after battle. Holy! Tower casts Zap on all enemies. Damage dealt is Mina's level multiplied between 0.5 and 2. And then finally, Fool casts Thwack on the entire party. Normal chance of this card being drawn is minuscule, but if the cards are read more than twice in one battle, the chance will increase to 50%. So
Oh shit.
only use the cards once per battle.
How do you use the card? It's just a regular attack?
Just as an item, like you would use a staff.
Oh. Does it need to be equipped?
It doesn't say that here. I thought it did, but it seems like you don't, as long as you use it as an item.
Okay.
Sounds like a waste of time, but if you got Star, especially when you're grinding for slimes, holy shit.
Or if you're just doing a fun playthrough, like that sounds fun.
Yeah.
One in
use it.
Tornico. Tornico is funny.
Don't use it twice per turn.
Oh, you're gambling with the devil.
Yeah, yeah.
See that?
That's no good. But otherwise, pretty interesting.
Don't set her to auto attack.
Yeah. um, and they have a kind of an interesting story. They're kind of avenging their dad. And then there's a pretty hard boss. That's kind of it.
It's a bit subdued in my eyes. It was good, but I think the other ones play in more meaningfully, which we'll talk about. But
technically, there's one more character that you can play as in the end. There's a couple other playable characters, but Doran, the baby dragon, who I don't even think you could control. I think he's on his own.
he's always on his own.
But
Quite frankly, he's kind of whack.
It seemed like it. Yeah. But
Just a good
technically,
throwaway if you run out of party members for the final battle.
yeah. Um, let's talk about the villains.
Yeah.
Our main one is Sorrow the Manslayer, or on here it's called Saro or Pizarro. Maybe it's Pizarro. Maybe that's how I'm supposed to be saying it. Spelled Psaro in the games. He's the king of the demons, and in the original game, he's the final boss. I think it's the first time in this series that they had like a villain that was sympathetic.
Mm.
He hates humans and plans to prevent the appearance of the hero. His strength and ruthlessness are feared by humans but revered by demons and by the inhabitants of Rosalie Hill. When Rosalie was attacked by humans, he helped by living with her, but he left her there so that he could conquer the world. He sought to destroy all humans and resurrect the King of Hell to free the world for demons. Well, there's not a whole lot sympathetic after this. But after her death, he was driven insane and used the secret of evolution to become a monster. But the process destroyed his personality. So basically, at that point, all he remembered was that he wants to kill humans. But
I got
his
massive Chrono Trigger vibes with his plot line.
like him and Magus.
Yeah. Like the connections, like I had played them around the same time. Like it felt very similar in a sense. Yeah, you do feel kind of bad for the guy. One of the things you learn, I don't, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but when you fight him later, before you do, you take on a slew of demon enemies. And there's like 4 towers, and you go and they, some of them trick you, some of them are just big bad bosses. One of them says about the Rose Saga that he actually kidnapped Rose. He
Yes.
tricked Sorrow, pretended like he was human. I guess he did the mimic spell. Led him to believe that the humans had killed
Oh,
Rose.
because there is that cutscene, and that was him then. That mimicked himself into that human. Oh,
His
I
name's
didn't piece those two
Eamon.
together. I mean, I knew he did that, but I didn't piece that in that cutscene that was him.
Mm.
Oh man, yeah, that's fucked up. And it's like, it's the demons. It says here that they respected him, but that demon was manipulating him, and he did that
Can't trust the demon.
just so he could help. It looks like resurrect the King of Hell. Which is, I mean, if you're gonna do anything in life, I don't think resurrecting the King of Hell would be on my good guy list of what to do.
Huh.
Just resurrecting the King of Hell. Um, that character's name is Radam Weiss. The originals, I don't remember him being called that in the DS version.
No.
But he's a high priest with a wicked heart, and yeah, he is one of the 4 demons. In the DS version, he's actually the final boss in the 6th chapter.
Chapter 6.
But really cool enemy that you get to see him. His like not Radam Weiss. I don't care about the
Sorrow.
Sorry.
The Manslayer.
Just you get to see him, kind of evolve throughout the game. He's like a warrior during a
Arena
match,
2.
and then you understand him. Oh, he's like in love with this Rosalie character, and it's like, oh, the humans killed him. That's why he hates humans, or killed her. That's why they hate humans so much. And then you kind of get to see this whole story of, oh my god, I understand your rage. And then at the very end, like you said, that big gut punch, it's like, oh yeah, this guy just lied. And he did it. It's like, oh my god, this poor guy. It's kind of weird in retrospect, because why wasn't Radam Weiss the enemy or the main villain of the first original game?
Yeah, it leads me to wonder, like, was the NES one an unfinished project? Like, was Chapter 6 meant to be in the first game? Was it meant to end that way? Being left on that note, I guess you do kill Radam Weiss.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the satisfaction in that regard, and sorrow's beyond saving, and it just ends up being a tragedy. And then you save your hero and everybody in your party, and that's fine. But sorrow's almost like the Magus thing.
Yeah. It's like if Chrono Trigger ended when you kill Magus. If you choose to fight him. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, and then the credits roll. It's like, what?
Maybe that's all Chrono Trigger needed was like an extra chapter in the DS version that resolved the Magus conflict.
Oh my god, then we'd get none of the Chrono Cross stuff. It'd just be like,
You don't have to. Chrono Cross did exist.
yeah, how funny. But yeah, it says here in the Famicom and CD Theater editions, which CD Theater, what the hell is that? Anyway,
Yes.
he is an otherwise faithful subordinate of Pizarro, but he says he had Rosalie murdered to force Pizarro to become the new king of hell. Okay. They just threw that in there? Like for fun? Like, oh, there's this side character, you're gonna kill him in 20 seconds, but he actually caused the whole thing. And it's like, oh well, he died anyway. Let's move on. Let's kill the guy who's like just trying to get revenge for his murdered elf girlfriend. Like, but he's the bad guy right there.
Mm.
Like, I guess in the DS version they realize that and they're like, okay, let's just add another chapter where we kill that guy. But it doesn't really make sense because you kill him already.
Right. He's a priest. So who
That's
knows? He comes back as this. I guess he used the secret of evolution, which is another thing that is alluded to a lot. I think with the boss that you fight, it's Maya and Mina, whatever their NES names are.
hmm.
That thing had used Sorrow's tricks with the secret of evolution.
Let's talk about these chapters a little bit.
Sure. Chapters of the Chosen.
Which one do you choose? No,
One.
Dragon Quest IV. This is an interview with the Hori and Nakamura. Dragon Quest IV takes place in a totally different setting and timeline from 3. Hori says, yes, it's entirely different, but the first and second chapters are callbacks to Dragon Quest and Dragon Quest II. Yada, yada, yada. Nakamura said, the first chapter is very short. For us, it doesn't take more than 2 hours to clear. Even new players should be able to finish it in about 3 hours.
I think I did that in 30 minutes.
Yep. Hori
The
says
DS. Maybe there's some NES scaling of difficulty or something. Continue.
Hori says the first chapter sort of resembles Aliahan from Dragon Quest III. One castle, one town, a dungeon, etc. The second chapter is much longer compared to the first. Nakamura says people seem to really like chapter 3 with Tornico. It's unique. Hori says, yeah, there are some people who really hated it, having to raise all that money. But it seems the people who liked it really loved it. Nakamura says, Hori, I imagine you find scenarios like that which go in some different direction the most interesting to write. Hori says, not really. Dragon Quest, has a certain framework which you can't really stray too far outside of. I'm more inclined to make small changes to the scenarios to distinguish them from each other. Well, they did a good job with the quests here.
Oh, absolutely. Now we can really get into the meat and potatoes here. I love this. Everyone is purposeful. When you start off with Ragnar, the kids are missing. The children are missing, and even that concept of like some monster stealing children, and it's in order to what? To kill off and find the prophesied one. They don't know who it is, but they just know that he's a kid. And so they're going to all the towns to steal the children to ensure that their plans are not ruined one day. And Ragnar sets out, as kind of a lone warrior to stop this from happening. And he's so moved after having, saved the children that he volunteers to search the world for this fated hero, child.
Yeah.
Um, Lena's chapter is really it is kind of moving in a sense because when you're in the arena, do you remember what you're fighting for?
No, I don't remember what you are fighting for.
The king's daughter is to be wed to the victor of the arena, and Sorrow is currently at the top of the arena.
Oh, yeah.
By playing it as Elena, you are technically circumventing the process because they won't allow her to marry another woman. I guess there's some commentary there about,
It's an
ancient.
older game.
Yeah, yeah, it's set in the romantic European era, so whatever. But it and eventually, when you finally get the chance to fight Sorrow, he's not even there. Why? Well, make the connection to Rose. He cares more about Rose. This idea of marrying King's daughter, he doesn't care. He just kind of scared them, I guess, for the fun of it. Ornico is kind of like the bridge, I guess. Because he actually is digging a tunnel.
Hmm.
He has to fund the tunnel to from one side of the world to the other that eventually becomes used for the rest of the game. I don't remember too much else plot wise from his
His was
story.
his also bridged. That's more of a metaphor.
Mm.
Bridged the town north to Endor. Because
Mhm.
the prince of that town ended up marrying the princess of Endor because they
Mm.
actually loved each other. Um, so it was kind of bringing them together. And for like the rest of the game in Endor, there's a big wedding going on.
He's also selling supplies to the castles for the
Yeah.
arms,
Oh
for
my
the
god.
war.
Is that not the most fun thing? Like it's like annoying, but it's also like it's so refreshing to just kind of be like, I gotta get these 9 swords and these 9 suits of armor or whatever it was.
Yeah. Tons of grinding, but it's fun, and I mean, you get a ton of money out of it too. So I mean, and even just purpose wise, like there is some purpose there, so it
Mm.
feels good. My Amina's chapter is serviceable, I think. Avenging their father, and then when you go in that castle and like the king is hiding in a room in the back,
Yeah.
and there's two forms of him.
He's
So
hard.
it is
He's
a hard
very
fight.
hard. And he wins in the
There's
end
a
anyway.
third party member who joins you. I forget his name.
Ujam.
Jam, yeah, he's a beast. Jam's a beast.
And you remember like there's like the guy, the chancellor, the one guy. I can't. He wasn't the king, but he was in his little room, and you have to put like an explosive next to his thing, his room,
Mhm.
and because
He's just
he
like, "What
gets
was that?"
jumpy.
And then he goes, he runs to the back of the castle.
So much character, like so much like,
Yeah.
which is ironic because those games, even on the DS version, they don't really talk. Like your characters don't speak, but it's just how they interact with the world and how the characters are like the side characters are talking to them, and you get so much from that, even though you don't necessarily always get it from the characters themselves. It's so
The other
adorable.
thing I really love here is that I don't know how this was on the NES, but the game is retranslated for the DS. There are 13 dialects that are included across all of the locations in Dragon Quest
Wow.
IV. Including like Russian and Scottish for Ragnar's area of Burland, and Russian for Zamoskva,
Mhm.
Elena's area, and just seeing the little touches on the words based on the place you're at really does give every town some flavor. Makes me kind of excited to explore and to talk to people.
Yeah, it's a treasure. Um,
And every character in one town greets you by saying "Dobre," great to see you. Starevna, Elena. It's cool. Or a cool word I remember was like banjaxed. I'm like, what the hell is banjaxed? It's like, oh, I quit banjaxed in my ports. I'm like, that's a new one. So a couple of cool plays on dialogue there.
yeah. Um, Chapter 5 is the primary chapter. That is the Dragon Quest chapter. It starts with our hero, and he gets. They think that they kill him, but they kill his doppelganger, or her
His
doppelganger.
girlfriend, you don't really get to know, but
Hmm.
you
She
tell they
she has the
like each
ability to
other.
turn into you, so that they think that they kill her and think that they killed you, and so once they do that, they've essentially started their actual quest of dominating the world and leave you to kind of pick up the pieces.
Also, your town knew this day would come, so they never let you leave the premises for 18 years or something like that.
Isn't that crazy?
And it was all planned. So even the girl that likes you, she's like, "I knew this day would come." She kicks you in the cellar. And
It's so sad because
yeah,
she's set up her entire life to die for you. Like
yeah.
that's what she's been training her entire life for. It's like how much, oh my god, like they just love you so much. It's It's so tragic.
Really, it's just the juxtaposition of elements in terms of narrative, but also music is really it makes the feels come home because one minute you're lollygagging, enjoying life, dancing with this girl, and like you know the people of the town, and all of a sudden this dramatic battle scene happens, and you're in the cellar, and you could hear what happens outside, and then you come outside, and the music becomes somber,
Mhm.
depressing, and everything's in ruins. See fog across the screen. It's just it's really beautiful. I think I'm at a loss of words, but it really does create some kind of like humanity and some kind of appeal in that regard, some emotional appeal.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It does. It's powerful, and it kicks off your quest in such a unique and just awesome way. Because in one instance you feel really helpless because you don't have very much and you're pretty weak. Like if you try to walk around, you could easily die. It's
I
not.
died a bunch.
Yeah, it's hard.
So much.
Luckily you're broke, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
But so you can die all you want as long as you just keep going out there and gaining experience. But you are weak. But in the back of your head, you know that all those other people are waiting for you. Like the rest of your party is out there, and you got to find them. So there's like a glimmer of hope, even though the main character wouldn't necessarily have it. But you as like the player, like, oh, okay, he's fucked or she's fucked or whatever. But what they don't know is that, Maya and Mina and Elena and Kirill, they're all these people are ready to help. I just got to go out there in the world and find them.
Mm.
And it's like that's what the whole chapter is. Well, not the whole chapter, but that's what the first part of it is exploring and finding them. And
Yeah.
it's freaking awesome when you do.
Oh, totally. It's great to get party members who can help. And then also just like love the fact that Tornigo is on the run.
Yeah, yeah. He's on the run from the monsters. They're mad because he built a bridge.
He ruined their plans. So everywhere you go, people are talking about the lone merchant.
Yeah,
There's a bounty on his head or something.
that's
Then
so good.
eventually you get him in your party, and he like kind of just hides out and watches. And then when you're done, he's like, "All right, can I join you? I think I'll be safer with you."
That's freaking
So funny.
adorable.
Yeah.
And then when you collect all your party members, the game just takes off and becomes your traditional Dragon Quest game. If it's kind of short, like I think this game is about 30 hours long, maybe 35.
Play log was like 22, 21.
Oh, you just zoomed through it. God damn. Good for you.
Yeah.
I usually end up at around 30 with just like various bits of farming or whatever. But I mean, yeah, it's not a very long game. But the Dragon Quest part of it, after you've collected all your teammates and everything, it feels substantial. It doesn't feel
Mm.
like you were shorted or anything. I think it just does a lot with a little.
Yeah, it really does. It's really surprising what they're able to accomplish. I mean, because every chapter in and of itself is a storyline. And for better or worse, most of them are really good. Some of them are serviceable. Last chapter is where it all comes together, and where you really do get the most customization and everything, and
Mhm.
of the choices. And it's really an emotional journey, which I think is what they wanted, but what Hori kind of envisioned the series to be. As early as Dragon Quest One, even.
Yeah, yeah. One, he was trying to get emotion out of us.
Yeah. He's saying, I think this is a story people will be able to relate to. Saving a princess. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do that all
This
the
is
time.
the most relatable of
Hmm.
them to me.
Because if one doesn't relate, one of the other ones might. Like, there's one about avenging your father. There's one about saving kids to find the chosen one. There's one about breaking out of your dad's clutches and winning a tournament that they didn't think you could win. There's all these different stories that are, you know, it could mean something to somebody, even if one doesn't. And that's, I guess, the beauty of
There's
that
the
chapter system.
role model dad figure.
Just trying to, which I should be the that should be the relatable story for most people. Is just be a good
Yeah,
guy for your
yeah.
family.
Stand up, gentlemen.
um, what are some of your favorite quests or locations throughout this game?
Some of my favorite locations. I mean, I kind of like this about every Dragon Quest game, but once you can start going over all the territories, I liked getting the Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I liked when you go into that town where you actually get the Zeppelin. It's like a
Yes.
island,
Because
right?
it doesn't it doesn't work like the other ones where you like land and you walk around and go to a town. It is the
You go
town.
in there,
Yeah.
it's actually like a zoomed in version when you're on the boat. It has a different look to it. It looks good. Actually, that's the only time in the game where I got slowdown, surprisingly.
Mm.
There's another segment there, like a cutscene, where it's like when you go in the statue and you like drop down from the eyes or something, and you
Yeah.
like pull the lever, and then it starts walking across.
Oh, that's so cool.
Speaking of which, once you get across, there's a cool segment where you have to disguise yourself as a monster,
Yeah.
Sarah's castle, and you're gonna go snoop in on his plans. Took me a little bit to figure out like I have to sit at the table for like a minute and then he'll come, but
Yeah.
still a cool segment.
Yeah, really neat. I really liked um you get this item from like across the map that's like it's a stone that soaks up water. Karstaway stone, I think it's what it's called. And you take it to this you wouldn't I love that it doesn't tell you, but it's just the context clues are there. So they're so well in place that it makes sense. Um that you take that and you dump it into this waterfall area or this water area, and then it soaks up the water, and then you can go down and that's where you get some like Zenithian, maybe the sword or the helmet or something. I don't remember, but it's just like a. I just love the fantasy elements that are a part of that. It just feels like something out of a Disney movie or something out of like a cool older style, like Lord of the Rings or something like that. It's
Mm.
really neat. And then the the story with Rose, where she's in her little tower, and it's like, what the fuck? How do I get into this tower? And then you go to like Strathvale, and this is a little more obtuse, but it's still cool. And they're like, we're all having the same dream. We don't understand it. And then you go, okay, I'll take a
Sleep in
nap.
the inn. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you play the flute to open this thing and go, and then you can go into that tower. And and I love that when you're just walking around normally, you can see her in the window
Night.
at night, and it's just like it's such a cool bit of like foreshadowing. It's like, by the way, you're supposed to get there. It's up to you to figure out how, but when you do, there's that lady up there that you can talk to, and it's like it's. I love those little things that they're able to place that you're thinking
Mm.
about how to do it. Whereas in Dragon Quest One, in some parts of Dragon Quest Two, it's like they don't even tell you. There's not even a clue that there's something worth looking at, and it's just like, oh yeah, you should go 15 paces south and you'll find it.
Hmm.
Like, find what? It's like, I don't know. This is something that may be useful later. Whereas in this game, there's clues that guide you to what you should be caring about, and it's like, how do I get there? I don't know yet, but I know in my head that that's going to be important. And then on your quest, semi naturally figure it out. Sometimes worse than others, but
Yeah, I wish it was more transparent at times. Like that one bit about using the staff, which was an equipable weapon
mhm.
on the mountain. Like, when would I have figured that out?
Yeah.
Use the magma staff on the mountain.
I think it's another one of those things where it's somebody in some town mentions it, and
Probably
it's
said it,
like,
but it was my best weapon for Boria, and I was like, I'm gonna equip this. I would never think to use an equipable item as an on-screen
yeah,
element.
Yeah, that's
Fortunately,
really
that's the
weird.
only time that happens. But that and the Elena chapter was weird for me. But otherwise, I think for the most part, it was straightforward.
Hmm.
Nothing as like cryptic as Dragon Quest II. I have to remember, like, PS game or not, this is a remake of a game from 1989.
90.
They
Released in
they were
90.
working on it in 88 and
In 88 and
89.
89, yeah. Yeah. So
Released in
it's
90.
so yeah, the sensibilities are still in the 80s. It's
For what it is, I'm impressed. I can definitely appreciate it, but I can I figure it out? Not necessarily. I still have trouble figuring it out. It's my second time playing it.
What do you think about the Zenithia stuff? Cuz this is the first game to introduce that of a castle in the sky. What
Supposedly, this was alluded to at one point in 3, and that's it. But this is where it took off. So I think it does play into the fantasy thing. This idea of like you're the fated one, you're descended from an angel who you know bred with a dwarf or something. He's got that hut that town that just got massacred, and he's like lonesome, and I guess you put the pieces together that that was your dad, and you know um eventually make your way back up there. I don't know that I got the full feel for Zenithia here. They mentioned that your mother always kind of wished she could see you, and I think you talked to her at one point in chapter 6. It didn't happen in chapter 5. I thought it was going to. There was like a an angel up there that started crying at the thought of you. I was wondering if that was her. It's
Hmm.
like the thought of you going down there, and oh, I can't take it. It brings tears to my eyes. Anyways, uh, this idea, I guess, of like a demi god in a sense, like a Herculean figure,
Yeah.
which would be your main hero. I don't get the sense that he really feels more OP than any of the other characters in your party. But I guess angels maybe do or don't have as much power. You get the one on Yggdrasil on the or one of the second top layer.
Hmm.
She's not that strong. She can mostly just heal you. She has broken wings or something.
Yeah.
This is very Zelda-esque. Yeah. Ocarina of Time, the one boy without the fairy, and you're actually descended from alien lineage.
Hmm.
I kind of get that sense. Um, Humble upbringings of a noble lad, and Zenithia is kind of like the home frontier for that. I think it works well enough. I do like the idea of kind of like going to a part of the map where you transcend up like to the heavens and then your way back down because this is in the end of the day clash between like the heavens and hell, and that's where the dragons really are. Like that's where that big dragon is in the sky, the Zenithian dragon.
Hmm.
And I suppose that the Zenithian armor is made from dragon equipment. I didn't read all the text in the game. I read a couple of them, but um, yeah, I think it plays into the fantasy element pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's got a cool it's a cool idea. Um I think the other games in the trilogy use it better, and it's sort of better integrated throughout the game as something to look out for. Maybe 5 does it the best. Um but it's a cool concept, and it's not like they spring it on you. They have hints about it throughout, and it's just kind of like it almost becomes just another place to visit. It just
Yeah.
happens to be in the clouds.
Mm.
It's like, oh, that's different. Oh, kind of cool. Um, so in that instance, it's cool. I like that when the demons are like at their full power, they shoot that beam, and it actually shoots like through the cloud, and that becomes your gateway to their thing. That's such like a fantasy thing. It's really cool.
Mm.
I like that kind of stuff. But other than that, yeah, it's just there. I think we're gonna see it used better. in the coming games.
I agree.
All right, what's your take on the end of this game? Usually it's a long. Well, in this game it has a dungeon too, or a castle to climb through. But this one also has, like we said, the four mini bosses that are very easy that you have to kill, and
Mm.
like a final little world. Um, what's your take on it, and how does it compare to the previous installments?
I think the other installments had a bit more in the way of uh, dungeon exploration. I think this one strives a little better in terms of like combat and just having a couple memorable fight sequences, and also it's the locations that you stop at. Do go in like that Crescent Isle or something, and then like there's a town there that like connects to Zenithia. Um, I found that as far as like narrative wise, I do generally like it. I like the idea of like Sorrow being blinded by rage, and then the fact that a monster, deceived him into going the way he did. It's very profound. It's uncommon. Like normally things are more cut and dry. Like you're just fighting like an evil being or something. But Sorrow is human in a sense who hates humans. I guess maybe he's elf. I don't remember. Um, that works out pretty well. And then you fight like this second version of him. Oh my gosh, dude, that boss battle. First off, there's one that's similar to it that you fight before. Its name is Stark.
Mm.
Sorrow was resurrecting him. Sorrow, through the secret of evolution, becomes a Stark like. Kind of looks like him in the beginning of the battle, I think. And um you end up fighting him. It was kind of hard for me to believe that this creature that you're fighting is Sorrow the Manslayer, but I have to remember that he used the secret of evolution to become like the king of demons,
Hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah.
It's this aberration. And in the DS version, the I remember my experience fighting it the first time and watching him, you know, transform and mold before my eyes and get significantly more challenging, and my eyes
And
bulging
grosser.
as yes, yes, as he would like unfold and like, more arms would be springing, and
Yeah.
like he'd just suddenly go like Saiyan mode.
Yeah.
The same thing happened when I fought him this time. I was just like, because I thought I was ready, wasn't ready. I got my ass handed to me. It was a great boss battle. It kept me on my toes. I had to use the whole wagon. I lost, but I took that L happily. Like
Oh
and I
yeah,
just
because you're
went.
like, you
I
can measure it.
Mhm.
You can be like,
Yeah,
okay, I need
yeah,
probably 3 levels, and
yeah.
then I should be able to do it. But you can see
Yeah.
how far to get.
Oh yeah, I went and I grinded up right after that. I was like, I need 30 minutes of playtime, just to grind up a bit. And then I got this. But no, it was just like a very cinematic moment in the game. And even before you get up to him, you are going through this kind of like ruined castle, and you could see kind of the flames in the background. So if you do a little bit of exploration, there's some unique items there. There's one that you can get, the healing stone or something. You can use it every turn.
Did you get the one that you have to push a statue aside? Oh my god, I was looking everywhere for that motherfucker. Because you see it
Got it.
right when you're walking up. And
Yeah.
it's like, and I'm seeing it as I'm leaving. And I'm like, how the hell do I get that?
Yeah. That
And
that
it's
one,
like,
you should get that one because that one is like
yeah.
a party saver. You give it to somebody who doesn't need every turn, like Carol. Like you probably use Kabuff a couple times, and then he's mostly useless because like what do you? I guess you could use multi heal.
Yeah,
Multi
yeah.
heal's good.
But there's
So
turns where, they're just like stat buffs or something. And so you're just like, okay.
right, or Boria, right? You're gonna use Oomph and maybe Crackle, but Crackle's not gonna do as much as an Oomph attack from Elena or
Mm-hmm.
um, Main.
Or Ragnar.
So, and he doesn't have a heal spell, so it helps to have him have like this stone. So that was a really useful item. and the battle itself was just it's really good. Like the second time I fought him, I managed to use like the all boys team.
Hmm.
And, we did fine. I lost like Earl in the last round, but I zinged him back to life too. So you don't get XP anyway, so it didn't matter. But
I
um,
liked having so many forms and just like a little bit less HP because you
Mhm.
get the satisfaction of killing the form and then you just get more of it. Whereas the other, I think it was like what, one and two they had a couple forms. Three was like its own like weird game or
it was
something.
just Soma.
Yeah, it was like there's like three bosses or something before
Yeah, it
him, I
was a
guess.
boss rush, but they were like repeats
But I like the form concept. I think that's cool.
with
And
four.
yeah, yeah, and one and two have it too, but four did it so much better. And I
And this
yeah,
should be the precedent. Like this was insane. Like to
hmm
me, this is like the ultimate like I really did get the sense like I'm fighting some Satan spawn right here. Like this is crazy.
yeah, yeah, and you're
And
just
just
like,
the
what the
cinematic
fuck is
nature
next?
on the DS, like seeing like the actual arm unfold or like get chopped off.
Oh
It
yeah,
says too he's like transforming or something. I forget what the word is. Um, got to get the Baron's bugle before going in.
yes. So you can get your party. Saved my life. Maya came in there, swooped in. It's very important. But very satisfying final boss. Maybe the most up to this point. I would
I would
argue it
say so.
is. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
very
This
awesome.
isn't even touching the sixth chapter. You know what I love most about this, though? I mean, I love feeling satisfaction after beating him.
Hmm.
Of course, you get the classic Dragon Quest ending where it doesn't just end. It's not like credits rolled. You go back up to Zenithia and you talk to everybody, talk to the dragon. Everybody's cheering you on. You make your way back down. As you're making your way back down, the orchestral kicks in. It's blaring horns. Da, 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 da. And it does like a more harmonic, symphonic. I don't know the words. I'm not a musician, but this blend, orchestral mix, it's medley, everybody's theme music. You see the Zeppelin go to everybody's hometown.
Yeah.
You see them reunited. See Ragnar report back to the king. You see Elena and all of the father and everybody appearing back at the castle. Cornico's reunited with his wife. You know, Maya and Mina appear at their father's gravestone or something. And then the hero comes back to his town and the girlfriend comes back to life. It's just such a it's just such a overflow of like heartwarming emotions because you've spent this time knowing and understanding every character's backstory. You see it come full cycle.
And I think it drives home another point is that Dragon Quest is a fairy tale game. It's not Final Fantasy. It's not The Witcher. Oh my god, it's the antithesis of The Witcher. Um,
Mm.
it's something that I read about sometimes, and it'll make more sense when you play Dragon Quest 11. Um, but tragedy, for the most part, is something that you avoid in Dragon Quest. It's something that needs to be fixed. It's not something that's like weighs heavy on the game usually. And you could argue, well, it takes away from the sacrifice of your friend if she just comes back to life at the end of the game. Um, in another game, that might make sense. That might be something that, like, oh yeah, I have to mourn the loss of my townsfolk because that's just something that happened. But in Dragon Quest, they come back. Like you revive them because the game isn't about tragedy. It has tragic moments in it, but usually, what the whole point of the game is to reverse that and to fix things. And I like that Dragon Quest does that because so many games, especially now, are striving for like this like depressing, angry, bitter kind of story. And I read some stuff about it with in terms of Dragon Quest 11, and it's just, I felt like the people didn't really understand, and I can trace it even back to Dragon Quest 1, hell, why not? But in 4 you can see it is that they actively said bad things happen to these characters, but we fixed them. Like we went and changed the world for the better. And I just think that's such a wonderful idea for an RPG. And it's oddly difficult. Like it's oddly not done often. We're just you get a good happy ending and people are generally just happy at the end. Like it's a uniquely Dragon Quest for some reason.
Also give you reason to love those characters.
Yes. Cuz like
So when
yeah,
the
you love them.
tragedy hits
Yeah. It's like holy
because
shit.
because you cared about it. Because this character's stories were meaningful to you.
Mhm.
If and when it gets fixed, it means all the more to you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not about tragedy. It's about like triumph over tragedy. So tragic things do happen, but in general, I just love that in this game it's fixing it.
Mm.
Let's reverse this and fix it. I don't really want to talk about the difficulty of this game. I just didn't find it, and maybe it's in the NES version, maybe it's not. I don't know, but do you mind if we
Touched
skip
on
that?
the we can skip that. We've already talked about like how the game can be obtuse, and that's the only real difficulty that I saw. The final boss is hard. It should be,
Hmm.
and I really think that making you work for it, like that's how an end boss should be. I was so disappointed with Dragon Quest 3, how easy that was for me.
That's
It
true.
spent like I just came in there and I crushed Soma. Like it was nothing. Especially compared to coming off of 2. Like I wasn't crazy about 2, but like it made me work for it.
Hmm. Let's talk about the legacy of this game. Um, First thing, there's a little bit of foreshadowing of the future, and I read on another Shmuplations. It's on the Dragon Quest sequels. If we had written another story, we could have continued the Loto saga. But I thought we could probably make a better game by starting a whole new story. I'm thinking that Dragon Quest IV's story will be the start of a new trilogy, too. Sort of not. I think there are two ways to make a sequel. You can keep the game system exactly the same and simply change the story, or you can evolve the game system. I think Dragon Quest has been successful precisely because we always update the game system with each sequel. But if you make too many radical changes, I think you run the risk of alienating new players. I think it should be alienating old players, but so for Dragon Quest IV, we made less changes to the game system than in previous games. If we had made DQ4 on the Super Famicom, the biggest change would be the graphics. And maybe the increased graphics capabilities themselves would spur us to create new events and scenarios. But I think that having more memory is what will really increase our possibilities. Every time we make a Dragon Quest game, we have to cut out about 1/3 of what we've planned. If only we had more memory, we'd have so much more freedom. Just having more space for side quests would really increase the quality of the game, I think. Ideally, it would be amazing to have a game where fighting monsters isn't necessarily the main goal. I found this so interesting, this paragraph.
Mm.
You could fight them, or maybe you just want to do something else. One problem that would come up there, I think, is the so called multi ending. If a game has 5 endings and the player only finishes one, wouldn't he be left without a sense of closure? Wouldn't it be a pain to then have to play the whole game again to see the other endings? On the other hand, if you know there's 5 endings from the beginning, it's like you're playing 5 different games, not one. Instead of having 5 games in one title, sorry about that. It would
Sorry.
be better to just make one solid good game. Anyway, it's a difficult matter. There's a couple of cool pieces in here. The first one I see is fighting monsters isn't necessarily the main goal. You could fight them, or maybe you could want to do something else. Because after this game, didn't they eventually release both Dragon Quest V and Dragon Quest Monsters?
Mm. But
Which,
I thought Dragon Quest Monsters was between 5 and 6.
yeah, it might. I think Monsters came after 5, but
They are antitheses of each other. Because essentially, Monsters is fighting and taming monsters. Plot is almost non-existent.
uh-huh.
Terry's Wonderland.
But in Dragon Quest V, also you recruit monsters. You don't necessarily
It's
kill them.
something you can do. Yeah.
I find that
Well,
interesting that they were
no.
thinking about that.
I mean, the primary one you do have in 5 is that cheetah, but I think that the ones that you recruit are for something different. I don't think you can
Yeah,
use
no,
it on the battlefield,
they're your
can you?
teammates.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't remember it too well.
But it's interesting that they're already thinking of that right now. You can see that they're like they're planning for that already, and that is
Oh,
so
as so
interesting.
you're talking about the idea of instead of fighting the monster, recruiting them.
Yeah, well. And here it's doing something else, but clearly what they were thinking was recruiting.
The time of this interview was 89.
I believe so. It's either
Okay.
89 or 90. Interestingly, too, Pokemon would come out later.
Yeah, the next year. So, 2 years ago, or 2 years later.
I was thinking ahead.
They, they then go into the bit on upgrading to the Super Famicom and what it would be able to help them accomplish. It seems the main thing that they really wanted is the key line here is just having more space for side quests would really increase the quality of the game, I think. I think they really think that they need to continue developing narrative, exposition, and they like feel that what they currently have on the NES is limiting them. I definitely agree with that with regards to Dragon Quest 3. Things like the single line of dialogue, from the dad at the
Mm-hmm.
end,
Yeah.
make it feel like a missed opportunity. At the same time, things like Oaniels, the town of elves that's frozen over in time, and then they just suddenly come back to life. It's also a hard hitting moment.
Yeah.
This game, Dragon Quest 4, I think really accomplishes a lot. Like I really feel it's well developed on so many fronts. The fact that the characters are very cyclical and you continue seeing all of them, and I guess there aren't so many side quests per se. There are things you can do on the side. You can get items on the side. You can get different types of equipment, etc. Um, so maybe that's an avenue that I want to explore that we will see going forward, especially Dragon Quest 11. Lots of side quests there.
I think I think you're onto something though, because you said that he's saying stuff about like weird stuff they want extra room for, but what they really need to focus on is the narrative part. And I think you're right because 5 was definitely the most narrative driven game. And I think that's what they realized when they made 5 on the Super Famicom was like, okay, side quests are cool, but they're ultimately meaningless. Like they're a chunk of time you can spend that's enjoyable. But at the end of the game, they don't change anything. That's like kind of the definition of what a side quest is. So why not take these resources and like expand on the characters that we have? And they limit the characters. There aren't as many in 5. Like let's just drill home these characters and tell a bigger story. And
Oh yeah.
I think exactly what you were saying is what they did. Because that's what 5 is. It's much more narrative driven.
I think that the quote about multiple endings and kind of like that criticism against it is really a staple here. Like it's a very logical perspective. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing against multiple endings. Some games do it well. Some games you really do have to want to see the multiple endings.
Yeah.
Um, Instead of having 5 games, it would be better to just make one solid good game. Just, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly because many games will take multiple endings as an excuse, or I always go back to that 3DS one, um, Legend of Legacy, which oddly enough had that one of those guys work like the Chrono Trigger people, like
Masato
a
Kato, I
point,
believe.
as a point of clout, right? And it's like
This is
you
terrible.
could pick from 7 character classes with 7 unique storylines and endings. It's garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Shit.
come to a Dragon Quest game, can count on a heartfelt, well thought out storyline, and I just love that.
What do you think? What's your take on the multiple endings idea? Like, do you think? Okay, do Do you think a Dragon Quest game would work with multiple endings? They have like they have little multiple endings that they're like which like in the newer ones, and this kind of bothers me honestly, but it's like which girl did you pick to marry? And they have these little things you can do like but that's about as multiple endings as they get. Do you think Dragon Quest would work with multiple endings?
Oh. Yeah.
I think it could do additive endings, like where if you got a certain item or completed a certain huge quest, it could just add to the ending. But I think Dragon Quest needs to have one solid ending, like one canon strong ending that everyone gets.
Mhm. If you get like if you told me in Dragon Quest V you could pick an ending where, I guess spoiler alert for people who haven't played Dragon Quest V, you could save your father, right? To me, that ruins it. That ruins what they wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's not the ending. It's not the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should, because then it's almost like you're ruining the auteur's vision, what they
Yes.
wanted.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like that's one of my big problems with multiple endings. Is a good story. Its ending should be a statement relative to the theme of the story about what the author thinks about life, about people, about whatever the theme is, like what their statement is. And it seems really wishy washy to have a game be like, well, you could have three different endings. Like,
Mm.
like what are you really saying at the end of that then? Like that there isn't. I mean, that is kind of a thing to say, but it's the fact that it's in so many games where they're just like, you can be married to this one or this one. It's like you can do this or that. Like, I like that games traditionally have one ending, and it's like this is what we wanted the outcome to be. To me, that's what it should always be.
Mm.
I'm not against multiple endings, but I prefer one. I think the one ending is key.
I think when we played Nocturne, it was overkill. You know, it's there's six, five endings.
Yeah.
True Demon ending was the sixth, and like it just felt tacked on. All it is doesn't really drastically affect the play of the game. It's essentially you're doing the same story. You just chose to align with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a different cutscene at the end based on it. I think that one didn't handle multiple endings very well. Versus in 4, there's a very transparent line between law and chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does affect how you play end of the game and how people interact with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it needs to be two separate games, in that situation. It's kind of insinuated here. More so like that it's a forked path halfway through the game.
Yeah.
It could lead to multiple outcomes. And I think it's all within reason. Because if you do have to like undergo the same exact experience the second time over, then yeah, that is dull. Would you do that?
You're right.
If the experience is customizable and drastically altered enough, then for by all means, multiple endings can work.
Yeah, you if you're gonna do multiple endings, you have to do the work to make them worth it. Because if it's like you just have to say blue, yellow, or red at some point, and you'll get one of three endings, it's a waste. To me, that's a waste of time, of my time, and your time as a developer because you just made three different endings that like most people aren't going to give a shit to find, and the ones that do are going to be. I question their sanity, but
It's me.
but yeah. Okay. Something else this game did was it's the first game to spawn sequels.
In a
This
sense.
was
In a
that?
sense. Yeah. In a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. It did a Tornico's Mystery Dungeon in 1993 on the Super Famicom. Tornico Healy Ragnar cameos in Dragon Quest VIII Monster Arena. I didn't know that.
Let me help you out here, yeah, because these aren't necessarily sequels, right? But they cameo in the Monster Arena segment of Dragon Quest VIII. So this
Hmm.
game had influence outside of this game within the series.
Gotcha, gotcha. But the mystery dungeon,
Dragon, yeah, that's the big one.
yeah.
That's the big one. Tornico's Mystery Dungeon. There were multiple ones. So he was on the Super Famicom. That didn't get a US release, but the
Mhm.
PlayStation 1 did. That was called Tornico's Great Hope.
Hmm.
We got that. Japan got that.
You're saying this is the first mystery dungeon game?
Yes. If you look up Mystery Dungeon, it's a Chunsoft thing. And
Whoa.
Tornico's Mystery Dungeon was the first in that series. And they went on to make other ones.
Right.
Um, like there's the Etrian Mystery Dungeon. I don't know if that's Chunsoft though. Um, anyways, yeah, so I did a little research into that earlier.
That is so interesting. I didn't know that it was I knew it existed. I didn't know it was the first. Have you played this? Any of these?
Tornico ones? No. But I played the Sheeran ones.
I hate mystery dungeon games, like with a strong passion. I've tried to play a couple of them, and I think it just made me angry. But I'm still super fascinated that Tornico is the first mystery dungeon game.
Here's the timeline. 1993, Tornico's Great Adventure. 1995, Mystery Dungeon 2, Sheeran the Wanderer.
And that's the
So on and
series
so
you
forth.
played.
Yeah. Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon would come out in 1997. Tornico the Last Hope would come out in 1999. So primarily it's between Tornico, Sheeran, and Chocobo for the first 10 years of Mystery Dungeon games. We then get the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games in mid 2000s.
Yes, and they're very
And
good.
later in like 2015, you get Etrian Mystery Dungeon. Those are the only games that have gotten, only series that have gotten Mystery Dungeon titles. It's the Dragon Quest that
I
had
thought
the
it
first
was.
Mystery Dungeon.
I thought it was like a broader thing. I guess it isn't, is it? It's just like a. It's pretty narrow.
Maybe this idea of like a chess battle thing, but yeah, no, it took off with Tornico. And that wasn't, that came out of Dragon Quest 4. Kind of a random thing for Tornico. I don't
Incredibly.
know, what do you think?
Well, I think that the original story was he was like gathering equipment, right, for his shop.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it makes sense from like a story perspective, but there's a lot of different games that would make sense for one character in a video game. So it is like why don't they make a a melee fighting game where you club people with Ayla from Chrono Trigger? It's like, I mean, you could. It would make the exact amount of sense of making a Tornico mystery
Mystery
dungeon
Dungeon.
game, and it's just they picked this one for some reason. I mean, clearly Tornico like stands out to people as a character they like because he's popular. He's in a lot of stuff.
You know what? I get it because, in principle, I like the idea of Mystery Dungeon. Practice, I suck at it.
Mm-hmm. Same.
It's terrible. I get crushed. And the signature thing about Mystery Dungeon games is like, you die, you start over. You start the whole game over. Sheeran is brutal in that regard. It makes sense that Tornico's a guy because he's just a guy.
Yeah.
He gets his shit screwed. He has to start everything over.
But he didn't have anything to begin with, so it's like whatever.
Right. So he could just start from the bottom again.
Yeah.
Would love to play those one day. Game's expensive. If you want to get the PlayStation one, the localized one,
Really?
quick eBay search. Yeah, last I checked, it was in the hundreds of dollars.
Good God. Good.
Tornico S1. $350.
350? You say
The
3?
bid today, when that's ending in 20 hours, this is an auction currently at $202.50. It's new and sealed.
Ooh. It's kind of cool, but still, that's expensive.
Buy it now for a sealed one is $699.
No.
Or you could get the Japanese import for 15.
There you go. My man. Or you could, I'm sure, download a ROM for that. Jesus.
That too.
It also spawned Dragon Quest IV spawned some versions. We have the NES, and you've graciously put in the prices of all these. The NES version, cart only $150, complete is $265. That's actually not bad to
Is it
collect that
not?
Dragon Quest IV. In
First Dragon Warrior game is like $20.
right, well, they gave that
I
away.
guess there's 80,000 of these, so
Yeah, and you got to think. So 80,000 released. How many people just trashed the packaging? I mean, do you have any packages left from games that you used to own as a kid? I don't. I don't have any packages.
annuals, yeah, but the boxes, no.
So of 80,000, whatever percentage that is, that's complete. I
It's like
guess
10%.
265,
8,000.
maybe,
Oh.
yeah. 265 ain't bad. I mean, as a collector's item, not as a game I would buy to play, but as a collector's item, you know.
Not a particularly riveting box art, though.
No, the worst.
It's like a sword and a couple emblems.
The worst box art ever.
Yeah.
Only the worst. The worst. The only thing worse is like the Mega Man boxes that people like ironically like because it's so ugly. The DS game complete $115. No, you didn't find just a cart, but
I just sorted by lowest price, and the lowest price for a buy it now complete was 115.
comparative
There's a
to 5 and 6, that ain't bad. I think 5 and 6 are more, right? They're like
we'll find out.
brutally more. 6 especially, I'm sure. PlayStation disc only is $9, complete $22. Yeah, those.
However, it is a Japan only game, so you'd have to find a way to play Japanese PlayStation 1 discs. And it's in Japanese. This is a text heavy game, so I mean it's really not ideal unless
Yeah,
you've already played before.
that's true. Yeah, those are always usually cheap. I would kind of like to have one, just cause.
Yeah.
I want to see what it looks like. Does it just look like the DS version? It doesn't, right?
It
Because that
has
had those Arte Piazza.
Arte Piazza kind of used the PlayStation 1 as its premise. So it had the 2D, 3D blend. That's how it's described. It looks very similar.
Mm,
It's just kind of streamlined a little bit for the DS.
gotcha. And then mobile is $15.
iOS, yeah.
You can get that.
Seems
Well, you can get it on iOS and Android.
Yeah.
And it's great. It is the DS version, so it's a full featured game like that. Highly recommend it for that. I played it on my DS. I think you did on the DS as well. I mean, we played
Yeah,
it on 3DS, but the DS version.
I've owned it on the DS for a while. I mean, I did own that one copy. I don't think I still own that one. I think I sold it and then got a reprint from Square Enix on their store like 5 years ago when they put in restocks for 4 and 5, so I could get the game complete with manual and everything.
Nice. That's awesome.
So what I have is a restock from Square Enix.
But if you can't get the DS version, the mobile is phenomenal, and
Oh yeah,
I'm sure you have a phone. So
yeah, if I didn't own this version, I would just say like suck it up. Even like if you're totally against playing games on your phone, and if you really want to play to experience the game, and just find a controller that works with it. I haven't done that, but I don't need to. So, but if I wasn't in this position, I would do that.
But if you can play the DS version, that is the I would argue the definitive version.
Definitely, it's fantastic. And we can talk about the DS version specifically.
Yep, got some details here. It sold for 1.27 million in Japan, 0.3 million in North America. So definitely an improvement from 0.8 or whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
more of them.
300 grand, 0.02 million in Europe, 0.03 million in others, for a total lifetime of 1.62 million units. Not bad. Not as much as not even. It was like half of what the original sold on the NES, which is kind of surprising.
It's an infinite times more amount in Europe then on the
Yes.
NES.
There's a lot to talk about with just the DS remake. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to introduce Arte Piazza because they've done a phenomenal job of bringing us Dragon Quest. Because without them, we probably wouldn't even have, you know, 4 through 6, or yeah, basically 4 through 6. They did work a little bit on 3 on the Super Famicom that was Japanese only, and then they worked on 7, helped work on 4 on the PlayStation, and they worked on Dragon Quest characters, Tornico no Daiboken 3. So there's another Tornico game. I have no clue what that is, but it's on the PS2. Um, then we have Dragon Quest 4 or 5, Hand of the Heavenly Bride. They made that on the
On the
PS2
PlayStation
version.
2. Yeah.
And then here's the DS versions that we know: Chapters of the Chosen, Hand of the Heavenly Bride, and Realms of Revelation. Then they
And
worked
the
on
3DS.
3DS, 7, Fragments of the Forgotten Past. They did some Dragon Quest Rivals game. And then Dragon Quest 11S, Echoes of an Elusive Age, the 2D mode of that, which is really cool. They worked on a couple other games. I don't care about those so much. But as far as Dragon Quest games, they're actually pretty legendary, especially for America. They're really, really important. And nobody ever talks about them, so I figured I'd just give them a section here where we praise them and say thank you to Arte
Thank you,
Piazza.
Arte Piazza. Hell yeah. Me and Spencer indulge in our love of Dragon Quest.
Yeah, they did a phenomenal job. Like these versions are the definitive versions of these games, so definitely props to them. I'm excited for what they're doing in the future. I did see a thing of what they're doing. It's a lot more Dragon Quest, so they're sticking with that. Thank you.
Up. Yeah.
As far as the DS version goes, you have general improvements to graphics, and you have the ability to manually input commands. Thank you. They come to think that might be why Dragon Quest 4 didn't rank as high. Maybe some of that crap. This one introduces the settlement or immigrant town, which is our friend Hank Hoffman Jr.'s town. That is like the Wi-Fi town. You can send and recruit people
through like choice encounters or something.
Yeah,
I forget what they call it. Random encounters.
Didn't care for any of that, but maybe that was a bigger thing, like in Japan, or maybe it was big here too. But certainly now it's defunct.
It's okay though because it's basically supplementary. It's not core of the game.
Right. New trans. Sorry, I'm dying now. New translation of script. Okay. Party Talk introduced in the PS1 version. It says gone here.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean. Yeah.
No, they introduced Party Talk in the PlayStation version, but then it's not in the DS version. I got that from the wiki.
I think it changed. I did read it. It was changed a little bit, so maybe that's what they meant. 13 regional dialects, which you talked about. And it also added the 6th chapter. Now, I did a little bit of work on the 6th chapter, and it is not good. Arte Piazza, great at bringing stuff back and fixing it up. I don't think they make great content.
What didn't you like about it?
So the quest would be like you go to the town that's in that little area before going to Zenithia. It's in one of the towns before Zenithia. There's a big hole in the ground, and you pop in, and you have this long dungeon that ends with you fighting these 2 guys, and they're kind of joke characters. And it's just really sloppy. It's clearly not like main game stuff. They play around with some of the graphics. Like you enter a house and it's like blown up and really big. Like the bed is taller than you are, and just like they got creative, but it's not like thematic with the game. It's definitely like it just feels very, very separate and not congruent, which doesn't make sense because the plot of the 6th one ends up being very congruent with the game, very much part of it. It ties into the fact that you're getting sorrow back, and he's not going to be evil anymore. And you need to kill that other guy that caused the real problem.
Mm.
And the quest to get that is just so long and weird and almost a joke. Like it's treated as a joke at the end.
Mm.
I just didn't really care for it. And then the fighting of the main boss at the end is just so it's difficult. It's like a lot harder than the regular one, which is fine. But I don't really want to use sorrow. Um, I want to use my party that I spent 30 hours building and working on. And in this one of those has to go, and you have to put sorrow in there. And like I put
Mm.
seeds in each of my characters to meet a certain goal, and so I basically lose those.
Mm.
And I get really antsy when you try to mess with my party. That because I worked really hard to make sure the party was the way I wanted it. So
Right.
I don't really care for switching out my party members. So I wasn't a huge fan of this edition. Although from a story perspective, it makes a lot of sense, and I like that. The
Yeah.
execution is just really lacking.
Okay. Yeah, I remember liking it back in the day when I played the sixth chapter, but it's been years. I didn't have the time to for this through. I do remember story wise it aligning pretty well.
Yeah.
As far as just the DS goes and how it plays, I think it's really it's good for the most part. Although I'm not crazy about looking at the bottom screen for most of the exploration and action. I'd almost prefer like the ability to switch that to the top screen.
Mm.
I don't mind what happens on the top screen. Like say you're on a battle at sea, perhaps. On the top screen you would see like the pictures of every monster that you're fighting or you know, maybe your
I think it's your party
party
member.
members
Yeah.
or the party members and their HP and stuff. But you'd also see like a background of the environment and like a 3D texture,
Yeah.
the sea moving, or maybe like the crimson sky behind mountains and stuff. And you'd see like the monsters moving and stuff. It's really pretty and beautiful. Um, I just don't know if I like keeping my attention on the bottom screen.
Mm. I can see it. Um, but definitely the best version. If you're gonna play
Oh,
it, just
yeah.
go for that one. It's the best. Um, all right. We talked about the game. Let's talk about our final thoughts on Dragon Quest IV.
Hey, we go first? I'll go first.
Okay.
Dragon Quest 4. This is really where the series starts to get really good. And you can see evidence of it in this game. Stuff like the storylines of each individual character. They're being goofy with Tornico. They're being funny. Um, have viable party member options and kind of a grand scale. And, I think also, so I've talked about the Super Nintendo versions of like Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, and they're good. They are really good. This is where you could really get the sense that this is like an orchestrated work of art.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned the word auteur before and the work of the auteur. And this really does feel a story being told about an evil pervading the land and, a chosen being who prophesied to save it one day and lives of ordinary people, extraordinary lives, serve in this grand purpose. And everything matches, the art style, music, character lore, the monsters, beings you fight, scenes you see, the areas you travel. Grand adventure, and I really like it. Is it the best in the series? I'll have to wait and see. I have to play the other ones, the later ones. I prefer it to the first three. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the direction I want the series to go in. And it was a great first Dragon Quest mainline game for me to play, and I was happy to play it again.
Um, to me, this is a game of limitations. I think you can see what they wanted to do and have perfected as much as they could on the NES. But they ran out of room. They just didn't have. There were so many things they wanted to do. Because 3 to me is a much bigger step forward for the series. Like, that's where they introduced a lot of cool stuff. And then 4, they're like, what if we did all this stuff? And it's like, that would be awesome if we had more room. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess we can't really do all that. We have all these really cool characters. That's awesome. Like, do we really get to understand them a lot? No. Not I mean, they're the characters. They're bigger than any character we've had, and that's cool. Um what do we really know about Maya? you know, I want to know a lot, and that's to the game's credit. Um but I think it's like a transitionary game. It's weird to see it on the DS because it's like on the DS it's put at the same level as 5 and 6. Whereas 5, I think they got it. I think when we play that, we're going to be like, this is could be considered peak Dragon Quest. And maybe I think 4 could have been that too. But because it was released on the NES, it was way it was just a misstep in terms of release. Now, even back then, I'm going to guess. Again, we didn't play the NES versions, but I think it's pretty safe to assume it's better than the others. I don't know that for sure. Maybe 3 was better if you could control, since you could control everybody. And 4 you couldn't, and people didn't like that. I don't know, but in terms of everything that I know about the games, 4 is better. 4 is better than 1, better than 2, better than 3. And yes, this is the direction I want it to go in. I just think it's a shame it didn't get released on the Super Nintendo, because I think this game would have been much higher on people's lists.
Yes, as a sucker for narrative, I'm just compelled by the 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 concept and the process of all of these characters.
Yeah,
They are infinite times deeper than what we got in 3, even 2. It's of Canic.
like that's
You're
where it
sick in a bed one day.
ends.
The joke. Yeah. This one, the tree of Yggdrasil actually comes to life and it's not just a speck on the map.
Yep.
So, definitely I can understand though. It does go up from here, and it is going to be good to see where we go from here.
Oh,
Now it gets better and better.
it gets better and better, baby, from here on
Yeah.
out.
Dude, for the next one.
Yes. Stay tuned, viewers, because 5 is coming, and then 6, and then we're going all the way to 11, skipping 10. But
12. We're going to 12.
we're going all the way to 12, baby.
Yeah.
But until then, make sure you check out Majora T's channel. Make sure you check out the button mappers. And that's it, really. We can consider Dragon Quest IV archived. Thanks for helping me out with this, Teddy.
My pleasure. Always happy to throw another Dragon Quest. The archive.
Take it easy, everybody.